mean, it is exactly what.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd come to order, please. I'd like to call to order the regular city council meeting of the city of Pflugerville at 7 p.m. If you would stand for the pledge and moment of silence, I would appreciate it. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor
the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. I see we have standing room only, but I understand why. But it's not unusual.
There's some chairs right up here in front.
There's a few chairs up front.
It's like going to a concert.
But surprisingly, this is something that'll probably continue for the next couple of years till we get a new city hall built. So, thanks the public. Our next item is public comment. In accordance with the Texas Attorney General's opinion, any public comment that is made on an item that is not on the published final agenda will only be heard by the City Council. No formal action, no discussion, deliberation, or comment will be made by the City Council. Each person providing public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. So I have a number of requests for public comment. For those of you wishing to speak on that particular item, I can hold those, or if you wish to speak now, that's fine too. And I'll start with Kathy Adams. Yes, ma'am.
I gave everyone one of these, and it was the letter I typed up for this meeting. And again, my name is Kathy Adams. And on or around February 23rd, 24, I received Exhibit A in the mail. On paragraph number 2, it said, the city of Pflugerville is holding a hearing that will determine whether you may lose the right to continue using your property for its current use. This property they were referencing was my home. To say I was stunned is an understatement. However, I can only tell you my story. But many residents in the Greenridge subdivision got this letter and also have their stories. My husband and I purchased our home in 2013. He is a 2-time combat wounded veteran and is on 100% disability from the VA. Our home is set up for his disabilities and is intended to be our final home. The stress and fear that the committee has caused us was very real. There are many of these stories from neighbors, but again, I will only tell you my story. I did attend the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held March 4th. I expressed my concern, and while there was an update on the website at a later date, not everyone is on the Commission's website daily. I asked that an updated letter be mailed with their Exhibit 2 statement on the website, which read, if you receive this letter and have an existing single-family home, no changes are proposed to your property. The statement was put only on the website and none of the neighbors. And I am assuming it's not going to be done since I'm still waiting for that letter. Further, Exhibit A was sent on plain paper, not even on letterhead from the city. It was not dated and appears to be just a Word document that was photocopied. Many residents are aware of the statement on Exhibit B, but many are not. My request is that an updated notice on letterhead and dated be sent to the residents through U.S. mail. As I understand that the council is a governing body over the Planning and Zoning Commission, I respectfully ask that the information be sent to all residents as quickly as possible. I have witnessed real fear from neighbors, assuming they were going to lose their homes. And for myself, and I can only speak for myself. I've been here 20 years. I'm very proud of it. And I just don't think this is the way our neighbors needed to be treated. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Duly noted.
Thank you.
Richard Gary? Do you wish to speak now, sir, or do you want to wait till that item comes up?
Wait till that.
Okay. Ron Thrower? Now or later?
I'm not wishing to speak. I'm against 7B.
Okay, against 7B. Thank you. Mr. Shaw?
Later, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Cynthia Montgomery?
Yes, sir. I'd like to wait until,
Oh.
it's addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else here wishing to submit public comment or make public comment? Sure.
Sorry, I came in late. Hi, Melody Ryan. I just wanted to let you guys know of an item of community interest. I am involved in the Round Rock Community Choir. It's the closest local choir that we have, and we are having a concert called the Life Cycle, a musical celebration of living, on Saturday, April 20th at 7 p.m. And I just wanted to hand out the invitations and extend the invitation to City Council and all city staff in the community to come join us.
Thank you very much, Melody. Our next item is a proclamation, and I'll come up to the podium. This evening, I have the honor to make a proclamation, or declare a proclamation, proclaiming Healthy Kids Running Month in the city of Pflugerville. Healthy Kids Running Series is celebrating its 15th year anniversary. The Healthy Kids Running Series was founded in 2009 and currently has close to 300 programs nationwide. Healthy Kids Running Series is a national, community-based nonprofit that provides an inclusive 5-week running series for kids ages 2 through high school. The Healthy Kids Running Series is designated for kids to get active, feel accomplished, and lay the foundation for a healthy lifestyle. The Pflugerville Healthy Kids Running Series was started in spring of 2023. Over 250 kids have participated in the spring and fall seasons. And this evening, I have Ray Trevino here to accept the proclamation. Mr. Trevino?
Where's Ray?
Thank you very much. Okay. You want to come over here and we'll take a picture. Or do you have anything you want to say?
Our opening day is April 7th, and we're running at Lake Pflugerville. So everybody here is invited. Bring the kids. It's a great program. Every Sunday in April, we'll be running Lake Pflugerville, and the first Sunday in May. So we started promptly at 2 o'clock, but be there a little bit early. We like to warm up all the kids. We got 2-year-olds all the way to high school kids. It's a great thing. I hope to see you guys out there.
Good warm up the kids. I thought you turned it. Ray, I think the adults need the warming up. I don't know about the kids.
One more thing. I did, Krista has some T-shirts for you guys. I hope they don't fit because they're kid sizes, so please pass them on to the children.
Got it going. Got it going.
Get rid of your
Ready to
extra
go.
small.
Ready to go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray. Our next item is reading of the consent agenda. Trista, you may, no, I'm kidding. Hey, Council, do you wish to pull any items?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull 5D, 5I, and 5J.
Say it's B or D.
D as in dog.
And then J?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And for me, 5K is in kilo.
5K.
Kilo. Interesting.
NATO phonetic.
Anybody else? All right, go ahead.
Items 5D, 5I, 5J, and 5K have been removed from the consent agenda. All remaining items will be acted upon in a single motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the consent agenda. And motion carried. Thank you very much. Item 6A is conduct a presentation on PF 101 class, the PF 101 class of 2024 graduation. And this evening we have Larissa Brazier. Are you the president?
I am.
Okay. Good.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Trellis Gorder. I'm the Executive Assistant with the City Manager's Office here at the City of Pflugerville. The last 10 weeks, I have had the pleasure to help facilitate the PF 101 class, which is the city's Citizens Academy. I am so happy and proud with how this class went, especially since it was the first one I facilitated. But I do want to take a moment to introduce our class president for this year's PF 101, Larissa Brazier. She is also, and even before joining PF 101, Pflugerville Library board member. Also in our class of 19 that we have graduating, we have residents who are in the engineering industry, semiconductor industry, energy industry, teachers, several local business owners, and I have learned quite a bit from them as well about their experience, and overall we've received some really wonderful feedback. So thank you for supporting us in giving the residents this type of opportunity.
And Trellis, I'm sorry, I just saw you as a staff member.
It's okay.
I apologize. Thank you.
No worries. Larissa, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Janice. I'm Larissa Brazier. I'm the current vice chair of the library board at Pflugerville, and I'm the president of PF 101. And I put together a presentation. So please join me in congratulating our graduates of the class of 2024. These are all the graduates right here. They worked very hard coming every Wednesday night for 2 hours to learn about all the different aspects of our city government. So thank you to the following Pflugerville city departments who enlightened us these past 9 weeks: the City Manager's Office, City Secretary, Communications, Finance, PCDC, Pflugerville Library, Police Department, Municipal Court, Parks and Rec, Animal Welfare Services, Planning and Development Services, Utilities, Public Works, Transportation and Field Operations, Public Works. So thank you very much for everybody's time on that. PF 101 Class of 2024 highlights. For me personally, it was touring the Pflugerville Animal Shelter, complete with the 2 dogs joining us in the classroom during the session. They were walking around the chairs. It was super adorable. We took a behind-the-scenes tour of the Pflugerville Public Library. Got to go in the areas where the staff works, and that was enlightening. We got to also play a board game that the finance department put together for us, and that was really great to see all the decision making that goes on in that department.
Oh, excuse me. So at the PD, you didn't get to go into the evidence room where they have the machine guns.
We got to see the dog. We got to see the drug sniffing dog. Okay, so let's see. So we got Trellis was great about getting the feedback after every session to see what our feedback was and what kind of impact the different sessions were having on us. And we had plenty of time for questions, and that was great too. Our class was really engaged with observing around the community and bringing that to the classroom and asking some detailed questions. So some of the feedback that were the highlights off the forums. Well, first of all, Trellis mentioned that we had 2 classmates that joined, after joining PF 101, they went ahead and joined some committees for the city. So that's great. That's exactly what PF 101 is designed to do. So we have somebody who joins the Planning and Zoning Commission and somebody who joins the Deutsche Invest Committee. So I think that's great. So thank you for your service there. And then some other feedback was one of our classmates said, wonderful, you can tell how much the speakers really enjoy their jobs. It's pretty awesome to live in a city with a very clear picture of how we want to represent ourselves. And I would definitely have to agree with that. And then the other piece of feedback was that this person loved that the speakers were passionate about serving and excited about community engagement. There are a lot of metrics that they're aiming to supersede, and I applaud them for that. And I noticed that was especially true for the Parks and Rec Department, that they pay attention to a lot of our neighboring communities to see if they're on target with where they want to be. So a very special thank you to Trellis Garter for your leadership, your efforts to organize the PF 101 classes each week. Feed us and follow up with more information ASAP is truly appreciated, and she certainly did. We got those emails like bright and early the very next morning. So thank you, Trellis. And that's it. Thank you for your help.
All right, good.
So Charles, I know this program is exceptionally popular. I think every year we exceed the sign up allotment cap within hours of the announcement that it's going out. There's been two suggestions in terms of how we can expand this program. Either we increase the class size, or we offer it at a second time. Is there any possibility that either one of those can be accomplished? I mean, I know there's limits to both.
Sure, we'll take a look at
Trellis looks to her left where
Sorry.
her boss is. And
So, I mean, we have that conversation quite a bit. I don't have a facility that they can hold much more. I don't know about that class, but
So
I
you
think
need a
you
new
saw
city hall
some.
to hold
I'm not.
it?
It's just
Well,
that we don't have.
It's like if you only have so many people that you can take in through the animal shelter, or so many people you
Right.
can walk in through the water plant. And so I get that the
restricted.
class size itself is limited. I get that it's unreasonable to expect that we can do this during the off season and during the budget season, right? Budget season, kind of everyone busy and stressed out enough. And I get that it's also probably not feasible to offer it, a Monday, Thursday, to offer two classes during the same period, because then staff is out extra time. And so are we kind of at our point of satiation here with how many people we can get in, and we just have to encourage people to sign
And
up
I
early?
didn't just mean class size, but I think the involvement of the participants, I think much larger would lose some of its feel. We could definitely ask that in surveys if that's true or not, but I think getting bigger than 25. If you don't mind me thinking more on it, we love that we have this problem.
I know,
Our
right?
waiting list is, I don't know how deep it is right now. It's 40, 50, it's deep every year.
Yeah.
It is taxing on staff to, we do night meetings almost every night. So it is a little difficult, but let me look at what we could do.
And may I add that if there is some award category at TML that we should apply for, because staff and you and your staff has done an exemplary job at being able to showcase all the departments of our city and open that up in an educational setting for our residents. And I thank you.
Love it. Thank you.
Mayor,
Thank
could
you
we
for your
get the
support.
current graduates to stand up and be recognized?
Well, I think
You're going to do a picture.
Oh,
I
yeah,
interrupted.
It's okay.
You're gonna come up here? Yeah, all right.
We're going to come up for a photo real quick.
I'm not gonna lie to you, that made me laugh.
One more class here.
I don't know when.
Nobody's busy doing that.
Yeah, do it during the time off.
Why, whose phone went off?
Thank you. Thank you.
In the courtroom. Man. But he's got some good kicks on there. So that's all right. Make sure everyone's seen. Everyone's seen. I know, you're in your tippy toes back there.
Good job.
I think somebody up there is going to take my job.
I hope so. Hey, watch what you wish for. Hey.
I don't want to do it forever.
Okay. Our next item is 6B, which is a introduction and take action to make an appointment to the Board of Adjustment And this evening, we have a PF 101 graduate, Amir Ahmed, who is wishing to be the candidate to the Board of
Stepping
Adjustment.
up to the plate already.
Hi,
Wow.
my name
Sure
is.
you want to do this?
I'm about to find out.
Just kidding.
Don't talk him out of it.
My name is Amir Ahmed. I've been a resident in Pflugerville for 31 years.
31?
That's it?
Oh, that's as long as me almost.
I'm a program manager at a health tech company. My primary responsibility is to like read through regulations, figure out what our company has to comply with, and then like communicate those to different product management and engineering teams. Full disclosure, I do not know much about land use codes, but after going through the PF 101 program and just kind of seeing everything that's involved in running a city, from finance and maintaining all the different services that the citizens depend on, I just wanted to kind of be a part of the town that I grew up in, and just contribute in any way that I can. So.
Did you graduate from PHS?
I was going to ask.
Huh?
Did you graduate from PHS?
Yeah.
What year?
There we go.
05.
05.
A PHS
There
graduate.
we go.
Congratulations.
So, did I see that on your resume you went to University of Texas at Arlington?
Yeah.
Did you happen to take any classes from Chicago Vend while you were up there?
What does he teach? I don't think so.
Okay.
It's been a while.
You didn't take a Pascal programming class from me, did you? I don't remember you.
Do you know how to fix a flux capacitor?
Wrong college.
We're asking questions.
Bio.
That could be one of the issues on the agenda. Well, Amir, let me just say this, because I think Mr. Rogers has been on the Board of Adjustment. I don't think any of the rest of us have been. I will eventually someday. But so that's the one board within the city of Pflugerville that the city council can't override. So you make one of the highest decisions in the city of Pflugerville, even above us. So that's a big responsibility, and I'm sure you can handle it.
Mayor, we entertain a motion.
Yep.
Motion to approve.
Amir.
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess I can say his name here. On the Board of Adjustments as presented on 6B.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to appoint Amir to the Board of Adjustment.
It's too late to back out now, man.
Right.
I'll be here if you need me. Thank you.
Yeah, mine's.
You may have one no vote
Why
here.
is Doug
There it
voting
is.
no? What's up with that?
Okay, motion carried.
There we go.
Amir, congratulations. Thank you. Welcome to the Board of Adjustment.
Congratulations, Madam President. Now you have 3 graduates on city boards.
There we go. All
That's
right.
leadership.
Item 7A, conduct a public hearing and consider approving the first reading of an ordinance with caption reading, an ordinance of the City of Pflugerville, Texas, amending ordinance number 1203-15-02-24 of the City of Pflugerville, Texas, as amended by changing zoning designation of approximately 14.794 acres of unplatted land situated in the Alexander Walters Survey number 67, abstract number 791, Travis County, Texas, from general business GB1 to retail, to be known as the Wells Branch and Emmanuel rezoning, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Robin Miga, Assistant Director of Planning and Development Services. The item before you tonight is a rezoning request for a property located at the northeast corner of Wells Branch and Emmanuel Road. This is a request to rezone a portion of that tract from GB1 to the retail district. Background on this request, so this property was annexed into the city in 2018 and was given the base zoning district of Agriculture Development Reserve, which is traditional of properties when they first get annexed into the city. It was then rezoned as the overall LISO tract, so it was annexed with much of that area. And so the portion that you see outlined in black is approximately 15 acres of the overall 22.5 acres that was zoned to GB1 in 2019. So they are proposing the 15 acres to be rezoned from the GB1 to retail. As mentioned, to the north, there's SFR and SFMU zoning districts. The SFMU is developed as detached residential. Then to the east, there is also SFR and SFMU zoning. South is the Agriculture Development Reserve, and then GB2. And then to the west, there is GB1, which, as I previously mentioned, was a part of that overall LISO rezoning.
So just to the left of that, kind of on the edge, that's Emmanuel Road, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's just out of shot, but it's at the hard corner. The full red parcel is at the hard corner of Emmanuel and Wells Branch.
Right.
And then diagonal from this tract is the Idea Public School.
Well, we know.
The comprehensive plan calls this property out as neighborhood, retail, office, and commercial. It is that future land use is typically situated at the intersection of major thoroughfares. It's meant to provide those supportive retail services to adjacent residential, really get at that 10-minute neighborhood and those healthy neighborhoods that our comprehensive plan talks about, so that we're creating that walkable community so that your residents can walk to the retail services that are necessary. It also calls for a level of mixed-use development. It's also located within the neighborhood district that's called East Pecan. Just on the west side of the creek, it's mostly residential. There's multiple schools located in the East Pecan district. There's also an emphasis on the connectivity of parcels and through sidewalks and trails and things of that nature. Transportation Master Plan calls Wells Branch Parkway out as a major arterial, and then Finnick Lane is a major collector. Through this parcel, there is also an extension of a residential street that has already been stubbed to this property called Betsy, and that road will be required to be extended through this parcel as well, though it's not adopted through the Transportation Master Plan. So the proposed zoning district of retail, it is less intense than the GB1 district. So some of those heavy automotive uses aren't allowed by right in this zoning district. There's restrictions and more conditions that are on some of the uses that are allowed by right. But it does allow for some residential uses by right, commercial uses by right, and it's meant to provide those supportive, convenient accesses to retail services. This type of zoning district is also generally located at a major corner.
Could we go back one slide?
This one?
Yeah.
Are you looking for Finnick?
Yeah. I'm looking
Finnick
for
is it's easier to see here. So on that far eastern boundary, you can see they actually did that extension
I see that.
through their
All right.
subdivision.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, they do.
So staff finds that the retail zoning district is compliant with the future land use map and with our comprehensive plan. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval, and staff is also recommending approval. The applicant is also available and has a presentation prepared.
Was
And
planning and zoning unanimous?
I'm sorry.
It was, but not all members were present.
Oh, okay.
So I know this has been a long time coming, like the conversation between staff, the actual developers, the Patriots right there as well, and to finally come to a reasonable solution on this. I mean, this has been years, so excellent job to everyone involved, getting something that makes sense, vibrant, and I love how you talked a bit about the walkability, because that's something that we're seeing more and more, the necessity that our citizens, they just have completely different traffic patterns. It's you have 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 different traffic patterns in the city now. And people want to be able to go somewhere that's near their home, near adjacent to where they're at, as opposed to something that's even, a couple of streets over from there. So to be able to have something where, the possibility for some sort of, commercial aspect with those subdivisions, and we know that school is right over there, which is another captured population. Excellent work overall. Really good.
Thank you, sir.
To be fair, it's GB1 now.
Yeah, but we can talk.
And so, I'm going through the UDC looking at retail versus GB1, and making sure, the only thing that stands out, it seems to be more restrictive in almost every case except at the top of this list. It seems like it allows for single family attached. So it does now allow, by making it retail, it would allow it to have townhomes built on it. you said the developer's here. Do we know if that's part of the plan?
I'll let this, the
Yeah.
item before you is a straight zoning case. So there is not a plan required as part of a straight zoning case. We evaluate the zoning district as a whole and whether
Sure.
it meets the comprehensive
Right.
plan. But I'm happy to bring the applicant in if
Well,
you'd like to
I mean, it
ask.
doesn't matter really.
Okay.
I mean, because you can
Yeah.
say yes or no and then change it once we.
Exactly.
But just it's just worthy to note that retail is seems to be generally more restrictive than GB1, except for that. Am I missing any other exceptions that stood out for staff?
Other than so the residential use that's allowed by right is the townhomes. Those are not allowed by right in GB1.
Correct.
In GB1, there are restrictions, and the same restrictions exist in retail for multifamily and condominium.
Right.
There's senior living requirements if you want to develop the full parcel under that use, or for multifamily, there's a requirement that there's 50% of the ground floor is required to be retail. And then for condominiums, there are, I think there's a cap of 40% that's allowed to be retail or residential with it if you utilize the condominiums for residential.
But
Within the commercial uses, there are less intense commercial uses allowed on this parcel.
I laughed when I saw that under retail, a bar is not permitted, but a brew pub is.
I noticed that. I was gonna ask you about that.
I mean, that's a huge line of delineation.
You're gonna draw a line
If you have food,
You
it's
gotta
okay.
draw a
right?
line somewhere.
Could you tell me on that, the fact that it does allow residential? I mean, I've been here a while. I don't know that I realized that retail allows some residential in that sense. Townhomes versus, so that's single family attached versus multifamily. What's the density? Could the entire parcel be townhomes, and at what density?
Theoretically, yes. There are design standards, which is what it refers to within our architectural standards, and there's specific requirements for what that structure would have to look like to be developed as a townhome in that zoning district. I believe it is no more than 7 in a row, and then there's specific architectural features, the location of garages and things like that. They kind of prevent you from doing exactly like along a public street. They wouldn't be able to all be like completely maxed out.
And could you give me an idea? Usually, I think from a density perspective, I'm looking for a number of units per acre, or number of dwelling units per acre.
I believe it's 10.
And this is 15 acres, 14.7 acres.
Yeah, almost
So
15.
14, that was
14.979.
But there are development standards that would be required to be met. I mean, there's drainage requirements, there's the extension of a road. It wouldn't be just 15, it wouldn't be able to be developed as just 15 acres of townhomes. There's infrastructure that has to go in, there's drainage that has to go in, there's parkland dedication requirements that would be required to be met, and things like that.
But the entirety of the parcel could be consumed by townhomes.
Theoretically, yes.
With the supporting infrastructure. Not
Yes, sir.
necessarily a corner store or a coffee shop or anything like that, or a brew pub, but just townhomes.
Yes, sir.
So this is my suggestion. The developers here, I would suggest if
Yeah,
we're willing
it'd be great to
have a
hear from the
conversation
developer on
what their
what
thoughts
they
are.
can tell us about their zoning request.
Yeah, it'd be, representative or applicant or.
Yeah.
Come forward.
Just as long as it's not one 14-acre brew pub.
That'd be
That
genius.
sounds interesting.
Genius
It
idea.
does sound it.
With a pickleball court, right?
At least 8.
No, Abercline is a pickleball court.
A brew pub filled with
Build
pickleball courts? Wait a minute.
What could go wrong?
We'd have to scrape the city manager off every morning.
Hey.
Okay, guys.
All right. Thank you for being with us.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Michelle Hausman, representing the applicant. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I have a very brief presentation, as Ms. Miga did an excellent job going over the details. So the location here, if we need to refer to it, we have an aerial photograph, and you can see the construction of the Taylor Morrison single family to the north, and the extension of Finnig that we just spoke about. This is an up-close view if we wanted to look at some of the infrastructure.
And this is
that-
currently what it looks like.
Yes, sir. We got a current aerial photograph that shows that
And
construction.
that's much more clean than what it used to.
Yes, this is the
I
side
hope
that,
so.
yeah, you've got them
Yeah.
side by side. And then just here's a street view. And then again, like Ms. Miga mentioned, this proposed retail zoning does meet the comprehensive plan. The history of this case, we originally filed a comprehensive plan amendment and a PUD zoning. And with feedback from commission and council, we withdrew that application to amend the comp plan. We also withdrew the PUD request, which would have requested changes to the city code in order to develop this. So in our diligent work with city staff recommended this retail zoning. So a project that will be developed here will meet the retail zoning as well as the GB1 at the corner of Emmanuel and Wells Branch, which the GB1 is 8 acres that is remaining. It's not being rezoned. And then this 14 acres will be rezoned to retail. So it'll meet the comp plan as well as meet the city code requirements.
Michelle, remind us,
Yes, sir.
have you done projects in Pflugerville before?
Yes.
And in your projects with Pflugerville, have you found yourself to the availability to work with staff ultimately to a reasonable solution?
Yes, absolutely.
So in the end, even though there may be two different viewpoints coming together, ultimately you can come to some resolution on things.
Yes,
correct?
very much.
And in doing so, at the same time, you've never found any either chicanery, I guess there's some better staff
Are you
questions
leading the witness?
on chicanery in any of the applicants, developers that she's represented, and what's occurring with any sort of developments here in Pflugerville? Bait and switches or anything like that from what was
Do you know what chicanery means?
I was like, is it weird if I ask for a definition, please?
No shadiness.
Absolutely not. The trick, like what happened with this developer is the comprehensive plan changed after. There were a lot of conversations that took place on the front end of it, and then the comp plan was amended, and then they submitted a plan several months after the comp plan had been amended. And so that has been the length of our work with this landowner and applicant.
And Michelle, you're aware of the desire of obviously this plan and our staff. God bless you. Our quarters for commercial usage near these their specific corridors, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And while the request is for this specific parcel to be rezoned, that corner would absolutely not be able to be developed as 100% residential at all.
Correct. Correct.
Is there some concern with it doesn't look like this zoning request overlays with rezoning all the GB1 there? Or am I misconstruing the pink, light red area there?
It actually does. It does coincide with that. So comprehensive plans aren't meant to be on a parcel by parcel basis, though it does appear to mimic it, only larger.
Okay.
It's meant to be more broad brush strokes is what we tell people. So the portions that are outside of this that are pink are already proposed for residential development as part of the LISO preliminary plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there anyone else here wishing to make public comment on this item? Council, any other questions? Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
I have a motion and second to close the public hearing. Oh, was there somebody wishing? Did I? Oh. Oh,
I had something, but it also has to do with the second thing as well, and I already signed up for the second thing.
do you want to speak on this item?
As well, yes.
Well, sure. Come forward.
Come on in.
I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
The same issue I have with this one is for the next one, which I plan to speak on as well in more detail. But currently right now, Pflugerville is lacking the infrastructure to handle the traffic, specifically on Emmanuel Road. That road currently right now cannot be expanded without intruding on the current land that people own on the sides. And without making that road at least 4 lanes, that intersection will be horrible. I'm not saying that this idea is bad or it doesn't need to happen. What I'm saying is that we need to spend more time looking at the infrastructure before we go forward with this.
Serena, to that point, it's the LISO track. If I recall, and this is going back 6. Yeah, 6.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. when we brought in that chart, did we not have a plan in place regarding infrastructure and roadways? Regarding Emmanuel, and that was part of the agreement. And if I recall correctly, the developer actually chipped in as a chipped in on that for the extension, right?
The LISO tract has contributed.
Yeah.
Currently, right now on Emmanuel, if you look at the road right now, I drive this road every day. If you're driving toward Wells Branch, on the right side, it's all private homes, it's private backyards. That land would have to be acquired somehow. And on the other side, they are currently building a new housing development, and that land would have to be intruded on as well. So as it sits right now, there's no way you can actually build the infrastructure without making that a major plug in the infrastructure.
So we would typically have a requirement that the developer convey land before building to ensure we have enough right of way. What is the ultimate cross section for Emmanuel at that location?
Go ahead, Robin.
I believe it's 100-foot right of way.
Yeah. All right, and so that's
And so
enough for
during-
4 lanes.
There's a preliminary plan for the full development of LISO. The portions that are immediately adjacent to Emmanuel Road have not been final platted yet. So at the time of final plat, that's when that right-of-way dedication
They would have
come
to
in.
dedicate, and we'd have 100 feet of right of way, which is enough for 4 lanes in a center.
And
Yes,
that was our agreement years ago.
There's also roadway impact fees that would be paid and things like that at the time of building permitting, and then those are funds that are able to be utilized during the capital improvement process if that, because Emmanuel Road's being improved through our CIP.
And we raised this concern several years ago when we placed the lights at the intersection of Wells Branch and Fenwick
Absolutely.
to make sure that we weren't putting a sunk cost in there, and that we put the light pedestals further away than people are like, why'd you put them way back there? Because we didn't want to move them again.
We moved forward when it wasn't ready because of the necessity that we saw with the school at the intersection. And we also made places, you hear the Mayor Pro Tem talk about, to make sure that we have access to build the extra roadway and capacity in that area. Because just like you said, right now, it's not there, but it will be there.
Currently, there's no right of way though. Where homes
There
actually
There is.
There will be, or there is enough. It will be dedicated.
Yes.
Like I said, it's enough for 4 lanes in a center. That's in our plans.
And I know that right now we're doing coordinating efforts with Travis County because it's right at that border of where Travis County
Where
has
they messed
the
up the
effort.
intersection.
So
Yeah.
yes,
Are we
right at the
talking about the
intersection.
same road though?
Emmanuel.
Yeah.
Just
Emmanuel and Wells Branch.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
On the
Opposite
this
side.
side.
Yes, north.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That is a Travis County project that's
It may
taking
look
place.
tight when there's nothing there, but we got enough room. We're planning for it.
I'm happy
like
to
I said,
provide
4
you
lanes
that
in a
project
center.
manager's contact information if you
Thank
have
you.
specific
Yeah.
questions.
Thank you for your
That's a
concern.
good question though.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
All right, anybody else wishing to make public comment? We have a motion and a second. Council, okay, got it. All right, motion carried.
Motion to approve.
Oh, there we go.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve.
I just laugh about how long it's only been 4 years.
No, it's been longer.
I feel
About
like
TNT.
I was like that was
been a while.
Yeah, it was a while, and it. It's because Serena's sitting there and watches our meetings.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Mayor and Council.
7.
All right, 7B,
All right, how did we get 6?
conduct a
Did you
public.
just see that?
yeah.
Okay.
What?
It said
Kim's
6.
isn't working. It didn't count yet.
No, yeah, it said 6, but then it said no nays or no abstention.
Yeah.
Do we need to redo the vote?
It just, you're fine.
I was over here counting, trying to figure out who it was.
I saw all green, so I wasn't concerned. Okay, redoing that vote because we missed a vote. Okay, all right, now motion
Seven.
carried.
There we go. There we go.
All right, item 7B, conduct a public hearing and consider approving an ordinance on first reading with the caption reading ordinance of the City of Pflugerville, Texas, amending Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 157, Unified Development Code adopted by the ordinance number 1073-11-04-12 of the city of Pflugerville, Texas, as amended by repealing and replacing subchapter 4.4 corridor districts, CL3, CL4, CL5, amending subchapter 9 architectural site design and layout provisions, creating 9.10 corridor district design standards, amending subchapter 11 landscaping and screening standards, and amending subchapter 20 definitions as shown in Exhibit A, B, and C, and D, to be known as the corridor district text amendments, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinance, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Mr. Frizzell.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So on the screen, the different colors represent these different districts that we're talking about tonight. And those are generally along SH 130 and SH 45. And if you recall, back in roughly 2006, when 130 and 45 were being constructed, the community as well as the leaders at the time were interested in seeing something important happen along 130 and 45, looking at the land uses and identifying that they didn't necessarily want to see everything that we see on I-35. We wanted to see something that was special and create a unique place. We established design regulations that are in place today, and that's what's helped to create the designs and the land uses that we see out there today. Fast forward to just the past couple of years, right? We've been talking about comprehensive plan and looking for what did the community want to see, and what does the community want to see inside of our community, inside of our city. We found and we heard that people would like the opportunity to be able to stay in the city, looking for housing opportunities, looking for those different options so that you don't have to leave the community to go find some other place to live, but instead you'd be able to find something like that in Pflugerville. We also found that people said that they were interested in having opportunities to work, live, and play within our community. And so creating those concepts got brought into the comprehensive plan. The districts were identified as being like mixed-use commercial and innovation center. Those were things that were brought in, and those were identified along SH 130 and SH 45. So with the approval of the award-winning Aspire 2040 plan that represents what our community has said, one of those things that was included as an action item was to look at our land uses and to look at see how do we need to marry up our comprehensive plan with what our development regulations say. So fast forward, we went into 2022, and the fall of that, we hired Freeze and Nichols to be able to assist us with expressing the vision and bringing in the designs that were needed to establish these urban commercial kind of corridors and looking at how do we further enhance that corridor, looking at the SH 130 and SH 45 to start with. And then, eventually we'll look at the rest of the code as well. So we started with Freeze and Nichols. We asked for their assistance. We worked through that process. Fast forward to the fall of last year, those amendments were considered by City Council. Earlier this year, we had further conversations with City Council about the amendments, and so tonight, these amendments are coming back to you for reconsideration. We stand firm with, as staff, as your Planning and Development Services Director, stand firm on we're establishing the vision and the ideas that were identified in the comprehensive plan through these code amendments. These are things that were identified as being something that folks wanted, and it creates the opportunities for those housing options. It creates opportunities to be able to have an urban type of development that is within the corridor, and it still retains the ability to have flexibility for considering planned unit developments or specific use permits. It also allows you to consider in the CL4, CL5 district roughly 60 different types of land uses that are in there besides multifamily. So just wanting to make sure that that I'm clear that I stand firm that I believe that these amendments establish the ideas that we have identified and that our community has identified through the comprehensive plan. proposed amendments again are to the level 3, level 4, and level 5 districts to create these urban centers, to create that walkable environment and those pedestrian opportunities, to create that sense of place. The level 3 district, the majority of the adjustments for the land use that occurs in this district is related to housing and creating opportunities for additional housing. The level 4 and the level 5 district, the majority was to look at how do we break apart and we did this it's applicable for level 3 as well, but the apartments and looking at multifamily, establishing a way to create mixed use. Initially, we had talked about doing a mixed use as a land use. Then we rolled out of that through conversations with our developer friends and found ways to, let's talk about the multifamily piece to create. You have a design that creates that urban multifamily piece. It brings in the non-residential on the ground floor. It creates that walkable pedestrian opportunity. So that's what we were largely focused with the level 4 and level 5. Some of the conditions, as you know, inside of the Unified Development Code, we have conditions that are associated with land uses. Some of the conditions that were added in here were to address, again, that kind of urban form. We looked at drive-throughs as an example. How do we ensure that, yes, you could still have a drive-through, but let's also make sure that if somebody wanted to walk or bike there, that they could also reach that location in a safe manner. We know that the world is evolving. We're seeing more EV within our specific area, but also just within the country itself, and making sure that we're setting ourselves up to succeed when it comes to fueling stations. And so, these are just some minor adjustments that we saw were beneficial to bring forward to our code so that we would be able to be successful. Again, the land use adjustments then impact subchapter 9, which is talking about our design requirements. It talks about 11, which is our landscaping, and then it also gets reflected in subchapter 20 for our definitions. On the screen is the notable land use condition amendment that's related to the urban multifamily. This is something that we did not have. This is something that when multifamily projects have come forward through planned unit developments or specific use permits, they were things that had been requested and had gone through that process. We've established an opportunity for creating a by right through these conditions, an opportunity to have that type of housing, to have the multifamily project to include the commercial, giving some flexibility on where that commercial was to be located, but wanting to give the opportunity to get that mixed use piece so that we could create centers that are vibrant and pedestrian oriented and create that walkable sense. Inside of here, we also established the provision that we would have like 60% of the parking be as the structured parking. Today, if you wanted to get into a density bonus, we have an 80% requirement for the structured parking. This pulls back off of that so that we have this. This was something that was worked through with our design consultant, with Fries and Nichols, to make sure that we were hitting what we heard that the community wanted and that what we heard from City Council when we were going through those conversations. The picture on the right represents the urban kind of style that we were looking for, right? This is a photograph from when we were talking about designs and looking at how do we get at this type of project on the right-hand side. That's where we are comfortable in our urban design piece, our multifamily urban, that we will get something like this on the right-hand side. That type of style.
And there are architectural elements here that are different, but I think the primary difference is that bottom row of retail that's incorporated.
Correct. You have commercial development now integrated, or non-residential development integrated into that piece.
I like that, non-residential development integrated.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that it has to be retail. It doesn't mean that it has to be a restaurant. It does mean that it cannot be the amenity center.
Right.
It cannot be the feature that would be not public. We want to make sure that these places were activated, and while one could argue that, well, by putting the amenity center of the apartment complex at the ground, you're bringing people there, you may not be inviting the general public, and you might have certain circumstances where people might make that available. It's difficult to write all those different kinds of conditions into a code. And so what we said is that we feel comfortable with saying non-residential development goes into the bottom floor. Here's where their general location would be, and we'll offer some flexibility there. The left-hand side represents what I would say is a suburban type of development. There's nothing wrong with an apartment complex that's a suburban type of development. It just may be a location kind of thing that city council will want to have the consideration of where do we want to see those garden style apartments. You have MF10, you have MF20 zoning districts. Those are opportunities for establishing a suburban type of project. You could also propose to go into the level 4, level 5, or even level 3 district with a suburban type of multifamily project and come through the process of the specific use permit.
And I think we're seeing at least one example of that in a development in Stone Hill right now that's somewhat innovative in that they've taken what might normally have been an amenity center for a residential, multifamily residential, and given that a public-facing facade.
Okay.
So now it's a brew pub or wine bar or whatever it is.
Yeah. And they have a piece that is public facing, and then
that's
the
an
other
innovative development, right? Because it's taking that and putting that out front instead of keeping it as.
And they've only done that product a couple areas across the country. That was one of the things that attracted us in the first place to have them come here.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that we reiterate that multifamily is not the only thing that's allowed inside of level 3, level 4, level 5 district. When we were talking about the amendments, you still have the opportunity to do, like I said, about 60 some land uses in total within those districts. The level 4 or level 3 is around 35 or so land uses that are permitted inside of that district.
And just to be absolutely clear, because we heard some comment earlier, the changes that that are proposed in this, in no capacity, in no way affect single-family residential.
That's correct.
Okay, just making sure we're absolutely
Yeah,
clear.
we did not make any changes to single-family
There were some
residential.
misleading letters sent out, but we want to make absolutely clear here today, in front of everybody, that this does not impact single-family residential in any way.
So, as I mentioned previously, and just providing that on the screen as well, is we did have conversations with our development friends, and we have tried to make accommodations where we felt like we were meeting what our intent is to meet what the what the community has said that they wanted to see, and then where could we also add some flexibility in there. One of the examples of recent flexibility that was identified was we may need to have some flexibility on our build to line. And so that has been built into the regulation now, so that there is some opportunity there. If you have an encumbrance of an easement or something like that, we can look at an alternative. The proposed amendments, as I mentioned, are consistent with our comprehensive plan. The idea in the comprehensive plan was to create these destination locations, to create design requirements, and to create land use that helps us to establish that mixed use piece that creates the opportunity for the pedestrian environment where you could live, work, play. You don't have to leave Pflugerville. This is giving an opportunity for that. This does not mean that somebody can't go and do a different land use that is specifically listed in there. While it's shown right now as an example of a mixed use development, we included that into here so that there were opportunities to get to that point if somebody wanted to go there. If they don't want to go that way, they can go through a specific use permit still. They can also go through a plan unit development which is where a group can establish their own design regulations.
I just have to. This example picture is killing me because several months ago we had a discussion. We were talking about I think downtown East, and we were talking about the streets and how we wanted to keep them straight to allow for the little rectangles and squares, and we didn't want curves. And yet here we see an example of a almost straight street where they curved the building away from the street to allow for a pickup and drop-off area. It just no other thing other than just interesting.
Noted.
Adding design requirements that help to create urban kinds of context is not new. That is not something that we are being super innovative on. We're trying to get ourselves into a position where we can have opportunities for this mixed use and to be able to create those avenues. If somebody wants to come in, that we get the designs that we're looking for, that our community has said that they wanted to see. On here is just examples of different communities that have design requirements that establish mixed use, establish urban kinds of contexts. The amendments are consistent with the comprehensive plan. As your planning and development services director, I back the work that's been done on this. We had consultants assist us with this. We've had staff that's worked on this. We've worked through all of the, we've had lots of meetings. We've had lots of conversations about these things. These amendments will help move our city inside of those areas in the CL3, CL4, CL5 district. It will offer those opportunities that we've been looking for the housing options. It will still give people the ability to establish multifamily projects. It will also still give you the ability to build all of these other different land uses that are inside of our codes. We do have design requirements. We do have landscaping requirements. Those were adjusted to accommodate for these things. We recommend approval on it. I recommend approval on it. Planning and Zoning Commission has considered it. They also recommended approval on it. We did receive protests against it. And so the number of protests that came in does equate to it being a valid protest. And so it requires supermajority vote tonight for an approval on these. So with that, I'd be happy to go back, talk about any of these other pieces, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Council, do you have any questions of Jeremy? I've got,
What exactly were the changes made between the last time this was brought before council and tonight?
I added a provision that allows for some flexibility if we have a build to line requirement. And so it was recognized in some conversations that you may have some easements that would be in place that may prevent you from being able to hit the 25-foot setback line for greater than 50% of your lot. And so there may be situations where we just need to have that flexibility. We wrote in that it establishes the opportunity for some flexibility and consideration of that. Previously, we had added the credit for stormwater facilities to be included at the build to line to get some credits there.
Were any changes made with regard to parking requirements?
No changes made to parking requirements.
But there's flexibility in the design of how the parking requirement's executed, correct?
For so the Unified Development Code, the amendments require a building to be located up in front, but there is some flexibility in how that is to be aligned as well.
But there's a 60% structured parking requirement.
For urban multifamily, not for any and all land uses.
Not any and all.
So if you wanted to do an urban multifamily project, that's when the 60% parking was required.
And the urban multifamily is the one that you showed the picture of earlier, that one on the right.
Yeah, to create
So if you
something
want
like
that,
this, 60%.
you have to have 60% structured parking.
That's correct. And if you don't want to do that, you don't want to put in the 60% structured parking, they can come as a specific use permit because it would be considered as more of a suburban type of multifamily project.
Like we do now.
But SUP is not by right.
No, you don't want it.
So somebody could come to and they say, we want to build exactly that building, but we want to have ground level parking, not a structure behind it. The parking be invisible from the street, but it won't be on a structure, it'll be a parking lot behind the building, and we would say, no, that doesn't meet our code.
That's correct.
Or you approve it the way you have recently.
Yeah. You go through a planned unit development,
We just did.
or you go through a specific use permit.
We
You have done this.
literally just done.
Right. I mean, a parallel case is something I've personal experience with. 6 years ago, when I wanted to build a bar in downtown Pflugerville, where all the other bars are, and still had to get a special use permit because council wanted to retain some control over the proliferation of bars in that area. And it's not a barrier, it's just an extra step for council to have discriminating control over whether or not we want to allow something.
The council could have denied you that permit.
Could have denied me. Could have said, nope, we got plenty of bars downtown, we don't need any more bars.
Well, that sounds like
How would you like a t-shirt shop?
That's what I
sounds
said.
like a barrier that you were able to overcome, an extra hurdle.
But if we're talking about planned, I mean, one of the things that we always talk about is managing the growth, right? Don't let the growth go out of control like a virus or a cancer or whatever. Just grow. I think you've given examples of Houston in the past where, where things have just grown out of control.
I'm one of the people that actually likes the growth pattern in Houston.
So all this does, I think, is give council, whether it's this dais or 10 years from now dais, gives them the ability to discriminate, to allow for exceptions if it's deemed worthy, if it's deemed necessary.
So the Biltmore apartments over there next to the PCDC, as that complex is built, wouldn't be allowed under this new program, would it? Because there's no structured parking there.
It would be permitted through a specific use permit. They would come back to you.
But they'd have to have an SUP.
Yes. They go through a specific use permit or a planned unit development.
But they wouldn't, if they had CL5 zoning and no SUP, they wouldn't be able to build that
Serena.
complex
Serena just said
that's
it's
very
22.
nice, that's right there in town today.
Correct.
Okay. We have we have individuals here wishing to make public comment on this item. Mr. Richard Gary, please.
Thank y'all for letting me speak. I'm Richard Gary. I'm with JW Development, and we are the guys behind the Chisholm Station project, which is the blue right there in the corridor at 45 and 130, that 81-acre tract. And we worked a bunch with city and staff last year to come up with a PUD. And in that PUD, the beauty, of course, we feel like to a PUD is you then know what you're going to have there. And when you're taking on a big project, which 81 acres is a very big project, $750 million probably fully built out or more. And for us, we got to be very smart on how we sell the project, who we bring in. What we're trying to do is go to the moon, I feel like, and just like John F. Kennedy, we choose to go to the moon. I like a challenge. I like a vision, but it's very, very hard, as he would say. And I would love to say I'm for this amendment. A lot of it is like what we are trying to do, but I will honestly also say, if I look at this and see how many areas are impacted by this change, for a city of 100,000 that hopes to double in the next 20 years or something like that, that is a lot of expectation of very dense growth with a city that maybe would be struggle to get enough developers behind that concept. The challenge, and I'm not telling you probably any of you guys this, but the challenge with developers is most developers today build one product. If you're a multifamily guy, you're terrified to think about retail on the first floor. And you only have to go to downtown Austin and look at the building, and Stuart probably knows what it is, the ones right off of Riverside on the north side there, where they've got a multifamily with retail on the bottom that's been vacant for 3 years. You know, so, and that's downtown Austin. So, and part of that is because the guys that probably built that accommodated the city's wishes, and yet at the same time didn't have the team to pre-sell, pre-lease that up. It's a different team. It's a different group of guys. It's a different product. So while we're trying to evolve what fits in the urban suburban setting, which I think is the right way to go, the walkable communities, the 15-minute communities, all things like that are the way to go. I think the younger crowd appeals to them. My daughter lives on the east side, and she loves the fact that she can walk literally within 10 minutes and walk to everything she wants to do, which is great. You know, me, I live out in the suburban. I can walk and walk and walk and never get to the grocery store. It's a 20-minute walk, you know, so I'm a little lazy. I hop in my car. It'd be nice if I had something I could walk to the bottom of the if I so chose to live in something like that and do that. Anyway, so I'm going to regrettably say I'm not in favor of this. And the principal reason I am, to be honest with you, is this code basically, by changing some of this underlying zoning, the way the PUD was written, I don't have a document in contract. It basically creates a problem for me with what we thought we had by right. It's now not by right. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Is that understood? Okay. Thank you.
Ron Thrower? I guess that's close.
Again, not wishing to.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Forgive me. Mr. Shaw?
Mayor, Council, Stuart Shaw, Austin, Texas. Thank you. Nice to be back here.
I am opposed to this. Again, 25 years ago, I did the downtown warehouse district. Mayor Kirk Watson and our city manager were there then, and they'll tell you. And we kind of pioneered creating a sense of place in retail. On the ground floor, we did 40,000 square feet of retail. It was successful, and then the city came along and required retail everywhere, and that's why you see empty retail. The CDC requires retail on the ground floor. Retail doesn't get told where to go. It goes where it wants to go. That's one of the problems with this. There are so many problems with this. It's all fixable. We've gotten you all 3 reports from Charles Times South, from Nelson Partners here in town, and from Humphreys Associates, largest multifamily developers.
Mr. Shaw, can I interrupt for a second? I want you to address what the last speaker talked about empty retail. I just got back from a week in London, which is obviously the sort of prototypical walkable city with this kind of mixed retail and residential. If you were going to imagine what the perfect city like this would be, It would be London or Paris or maybe New York. And I was stunned at how much empty retail space there was at the ground level in London. What do you think would happen here in Pflugerville if we mandate this level of retail space at the ground level and all of the this area?
It'll be vacant. The same thing's happening in New York City, Los Angeles, everywhere. How come? Because retail is being replaced by, the people that we all order from. So there's not as much retail around, y'all. So retail goes where retail wants to go. I don't get to tell them, and neither do you. It will just not go there. Nobody gets to tell retail where to go. Very particular. So it'll be empty, sir. Now, not all of it. The parts have a good view. They might get a little dry cleaner store. There's only one dry cleaner store, one liquor store, one convenience store, and then you're done. And then there's other retail that, you might get something here and something there. it's every one of these people that I sent you these packages from, these reports from, says it's a bad idea. It can be fixed. This could be better. We've offered to help. I offered to Councilmember Weiss tonight. We want to help. Tim Timmerman and I have gotten together and said, we will go raise money to help you all hire a better planner. I'm going to get in trouble for this, but the guy from Friesen Nichols stood right outside here after the last one and said, I told him not to do 65% structured parking. Jeremy, who I really like Jeremy and everything, he says it's an opportunity. It's not an opportunity. It's a requirement. None of these other developers believe they're going to come get a special use permit from a council that wants to see those pictures. Nobody believes they're going to get one. I don't. And so this isn't an opportunity. It's a stick for staff to beat us with. And so I'm sorry I've expanded on that, Councilmember. That's the answer on the retail. Not going to work. Been there, done that. I did the downtown warehouse district. Y'all ask Mayor Watson. I'm glad to tell him. I haven't talked to you or the city manager. We've been trying to say this for a long time. We want to help. Humphreys, Nelson, Capital Market Research, it's all in those packages. I have given you a picture, and I'm going to hand these out if y'all will let me. This is in your city right now. It's in your code. The code asks us to do this, to take a courtyard that instead of doing what we do, these beautiful locations where people could go live life, where children can play. Instead, you have this in your community, and that's in the UDC. I'm not saying that it's bad people, there's nothing, it's just a bad plan. It could be so much better. Please let us help. We don't want to say no, we want to say, can we make it better? We're asking you to vote no tonight. Please. This is not good for you all. It's not good for us. It's not good for you. I'm the only one here that's done this. The other people is Endeavor, and I brought them in because I thought people in the city of Pflugerville would care. Not one person cares. Endeavor did the domain. Nobody has ever said, wow, let's talk to Endeavor. Not one person, nor to me. I didn't study this in school. I did it with Mayor Watson 25 years ago in downtown Austin. I think I'm the only person here. And so we did it. And anyway, this is not going to work for you all. It's not going to go well. One council member told me he wants to protect Pflugerville from kind of crummy apartments. This is not going to do it.
Mr. Shaw, you brought up the domain development. We all recognize that is a superb development, and it is a mixed use development where there's retail on the ground floor and residential above that. What would it take to create something like that in Pflugerville?
No, everybody, I've developed in 15 or 20 several of the ones that were on that list a minute ago, several. And the beautiful communities. Nobody gets to have a domain. The people who developed it, Endeavor, will tell you, it was so risky, they thought they might go broke or something. It was hard. They're not going to, so you might get some areas like this, but Richard makes a good point. That's way too much land to be dictating. This is not opportunity. This is dictation. It's a dictatorship. You have to go do that. Nobody believes it's SUP. So to get one here, incentivize somebody. Incentivize people. Give them a carrot. Rich is trying to do it. Help him. But making him do this, this is going to cost an extra $600 a month to people who are struggling today to pay their rent. I could cry about this. I care about people. And we try to take care of people with the stuff that we build, with the way that we design everything. $600 a month. That's for people who can't afford to live right now. You might do it in some areas, but let's incentivize them. Let's come up with something to help people, and don't require retail at the whole ground floor. That's a bad joke. It's a bad joke.
Mr. Shaw, I know Mr. Rogers took a little bit of your time away, but I think you've reached your maximum.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to leave and say, could we hand those out? Or could I hand them out?
Yes, sir.
May I hand them out? I'll help. Thank you for the time. Creating a sense of place is something we've done before. This is not going to do it. We know how to do it. We'd like to help if you let us. Thank you all very much.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Cynthia Montgomery.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman. I came as one of the neighbors that is impacted by this, and many of my neighbors came to the board meeting and spoke against it. But Mr. Shaw brought up a good point, particularly for items like this. I have seen them be built successfully and failing. I grew up in San Antonio. I watched them build the rim. I watched them build the Alamo Quarry. And if someone were to tell me, can this be done? Yes. Can this be done in Pflugerville? Not here. Not where they've done this here. Because what those places had was they had specific features that allowed them to be built in surrounding neighborhoods, but segregated so that the neighborhoods were not affected. And nobody here who lives in Pflugerville moved out here to move to a place where you're living next door to a domain or a rim or an Alamo Quarry. And when I've seen it done wrong, it goes horribly wrong. It's my mother's neighborhood right now, where she originally lived. My parents moved out there over 40 years ago. There was nothing out there. I grew up surrounded by 4 ranches. Currently now, everything is apartment complexes, cheap strip malls that were supposed to be great places. And we were promised amenities, we were promised everything. What ended up happening? Check and go places. What else happened? Tons of recent crime. Other things that happened. Target moved out there. Within 5 years, it was gone. We had Gold's Gym out there. Within a decade, it was gone. Office Max moved out there. Not even 3 years. They couldn't keep it. Same thing with Best Buy. So now they have a ton of empty retail space.
I'm sorry, where is this at?
This is currently in San Antonio, well, just outside San Antonio, but it's where the city kind of encroached on
Is
my
it
mom's
inside or outside the 3 loops?
It's outside of 410, inside of 1604. But places
North
where,
or south?
northeast. Places where this has really worked though is places like the Rim and places like Alamo Quarry. I grew up watching them be built, especially with the Rim. The Rim has really succeeded at doing retail spaces and then having the residential above it. 2 key features that it did. 1, it built further away from the current residential zone. 2, it also built features in for the residential parking to be completely hidden within the feature. And this is something when you say 60% parking for for this type of zoning, we live in Texas. How many people here drove by themselves? In Texas, 60%, if you're doing 1 per unit, we know that's not going to cut it. So it's going to end up with street parking. It's going to end up with other cars parking other places. And then the bigger part that I spoke to earlier, we do not have the infrastructure currently to support something like this. I'm not saying, when I say I urge you to vote against this, I don't mean this can never happen. I mean, this is a not now situation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else wishing to make public comment? Mr. Timmerman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tim Timmerman, landowner in Pflugerville. I like those comments. I think it bodes well. Not now. I mean, I think this Aspire 2024 or 2040 is a great aspiration. But I don't think we're at the point where we can realistically think that this can happen. I mean, we were at this point, I guess, last fall, and we had this discussion, and there's, as far as I can see, very, very little change to the plan, and I'd like to express my opposition to the plan as it is currently proposed. I believe, by my estimation, probably about half of the property owners in this notification area, somewhere around half, were opposed to it. And if you look at the parcels that have been actually developed and subtract that out, probably get to be 60-70% of the developable land is opposed to these changes. Now, I think at some point, this will be a good, something that would, could actually make some sense. But if you look at this corridor, I mean, there's 1,000+ acres undeveloped, maybe 1,500. To think that you're going to develop 1,500 acres into a domain type situation, and the domain is what, maybe 50 acres. I don't know what the exact number of acres the domain is, but think about the domain and think about requiring 1,500 acres of domain. I mean, and that's what this basically does. It's not realistic. I mean, I think if this were realistic, if this were something that I really thought that we could realistically be done in a realistic time frame, I would be all for it. But I don't think there's any way that this could be realistically done 2040, 2080 at that, for that matter. So I'm very much opposed to this. I also, as has been pointed out, the cost is going to be to do these types of developments are very, very costly. We're in a very challenging environment right now, as everyone knows, and to think that a renter could pay another $650 a month just so they could park their car in structured parking just makes no sense. So, I mean, I think that we can get to a consensus on this, but I would recommend voting this down.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Council, any other questions, comments?
Jeremy, I've got a couple questions for you. So a lot of what I've heard, a lot of what I believe I heard, what's resonating with me is related to the retail requirement, the structured parking requirement. All of that is tied to the multifamily development, right? What else could develop on these properties that would not be multifamily, that would not necessarily have that the fear of the vacant retail?
We have there's about 60 uses within CL4 and CL5 district. Examples, assisted living, I'm going to look at CL5 district. Some of these have specific use permit requirements. Some of them have conditions related to them. Live work units. We have the multifamily components, the suburban, the urban, retirement living village, skilled nursing, amenity centers, animal establishment, commercial, surface parking lots, structured parking lots as being primary uses, should somebody want to do that. Automotive body repair, collision repair requires a specific use permit. Retail, automotive repair and service requires specific use permit. Bar, tavern, brew pub, wine bar, brewery, distillery, winery. Call center has conditions related to it. Catering establishments, civic center, clinics, college,
There could be.
There's a lot.
Sounds like there's a lot. There could be offices.
Retail, office.
There could be restaurants.
That's
I
correct.
heard brew pubs and wineries, right?
We also still
would those require structured parking?
No. We also retain the opportunity still for should a office warehouse type of land use decide that they wanted to come through, they'd go through the specific use permit process just like they do now. The specific use permit process, as a reminder, is something that comes to you. It's one of those items that we identify that it might be permitted. It may be something that makes sense in that particular location, and they come through and you have that review, right? You can also apply conditions on it. When we're talking about multifamily projects that have gone through a specific use permit recently, I think of like Takara along Pflugerville Parkway and at Weiss Lane. There was a lot of conversation about that, pushing those buildings up, making sure that they had an integrated commercial component in it. They have a surface parking lot that's over there. There's garages that are associated with it. It's 4 stories. There's also 3-story buildings that are inside of there. that fronts out towards the lake. We also have another specific use permit that was approved on the west side of Weiss Lane. That's another extension. It's that same type of developer that's interested in doing something. They have commercial components that are in front of it with multifamily that will be coming. Those are projects that came to you as a CL4 zoning district. You got to look at it. You approved them. You said, yeah, it makes sense. Thank you for showing me this. And it included some conditions associated with them. The specific use permit is, while it may be seen as it's a step, it is a step. They have to come to you and ask you, are you sure that this is okay in this particular location? Under the corridor district today, under the CL5 district today, multifamily can go in there by right. And
Garden style apartments.
Garden style apartments, and we can't regulate materials any longer, right? So you'll get what you get. We do have some design requirements associated with it, which is you will still have frontage, buildings that are front loaded up along that side, along the street. That's an example on the southeast corner of Pecan Street and SH 130. You didn't see that project because it was zoned CL5 district, and now you see apartments right next to the Quick Trip.
So I know I've heard a lot from the community. A lot of people have, a lot of folks in the community are kind of tired of apartments popping up all over the place. I think we were very much behind in the multifamily space, and I think we've done a lot to catch up. So I think really my goal with this amendment would be that if apartments do come, that they come with the infrastructure and amenities and ancillary facilities, the shops and the services that are needed to support the individuals who are going to live there. I feel like what we've done with the conditions is actually allow, and correct me if I'm wrong, we allow additional density. This is a higher density than we had previously allowed. So we're actually allowing developers to build even more units, but requiring that the amenities to support those units come in as well.
Or simply,
do my goals as I articulated fall in line with the amendments as proposed?
I was going to say, simply put, if you're going to have something, make it different, make it nice, something unique. That's going to be something that brings some sort of
make it sustaining
to the city and its aspects. I mean, and I think that I heard several things what you had to say regarding what it can't do as opposed to what it can do. And going back to someone, he's going to laugh when I quote him on this, Mike Heath, regarding what we're talking about the corridor is that we're not saying you can't have areas where you can have growth and affordability for folks regarding housing. But on this specific corridor per se, we're saying we have a unique vision of what that looks like. That doesn't also at the same time dissuade us from working with people regarding some projects and work from there. For example, if you have an apartment complex and your amenity center is in the middle, as opposed to, I think some stuff in here says that the parking has to be over there with that as well. We can work with you to see what we can do on these things. It's not stopping anything that's happening from before. You said that it's a stop, it's a barrier. I disagree because we do SUPs all the time here with this, and I was just heard that this council will refuse to work with people regarding SUPs and nobody will bring that over. I don't think that's the case. And I also think, additionally speaking, is that when we're talking about this area, we know what doesn't make sense now. We know it has to make sense for the developer, and it's going to make sense for the city for whatever's going to be developed right there as well. People are cognizant and aware of that right now. I can look outside my window and see the Facebook building down at my office, and nobody's in there. Get it, completely. It's 2024. But is that going to be the same way in 2030? Is that going to be the way in 2035, 2040, where we're at from that? And that's the thing, is that this council is saying, listen, we know this is the corridor. This is what we have the vision for the corridor. It's different from the other areas. It doesn't dissuade us from making sure that we have areas that we have a variety of different housing options to make sure affordability, even though that's a question we need to talk to at some point about what's the definition of affordable, can happen in other areas. We're talking about specifically around this corridor.
Well, my comment about SUPs is that I think it's a vehicle, certainly, and we've had SUPs come before this council, and I think it's a tool that certainly is part of a process that allows city council to use discernment on the types of projects that are coming in and developed, and also the ability for a council to negotiate and discuss and come to an agreement with a developer. Sometimes it happens. I think very rarely have we turned down a SUP. I'm sure we have, but most of the time the developers are willing to work with us on what it is that we see in our mind, in our vision for that particular project or that particular part of town. And so I know that when early on, when the tollway was up for grabs, so to speak, city council, and I was on the city council then early on, where we rushed to do an overlay on 130, okay? Well, that was a great idea in terms of what we thought we wanted to see there, but we were still in the early visions of what we wanted to see there, and certainly a lot of things have changed since then, and we've made adjustments, modifications, exceptions, you name it, but I think what has happened on 130 has been very positive, and I think whatever happens on 45 likewise will be positive. Not immediately, I would imagine, but I think that's all part of the process of how this city grows effectively and carefully.
The irony is that one of the examples that were given to us regarding undesirable multifamily reminds us of how important it is for us to make sure we emphasize and put controls over that as well. That's the irony of what I got from that.
Yep. Another point just to make is that development is interested in the north side of 45. They've submitted, many of those tracts have submitted preliminary plans. Many of those tracts are in conversations. We have a PUD that's up there that came before you and went through the planning process, right? And we heard that developer expressing some concerns. We have opportunities to also be able to make minor adjustments within PUDs. That may be an opportunity in that situation. There are also situations where there are vested rights, and Charlie can help me with conversations about vested rights, but that's something that is an opportunity to a landowner who's moving forward on projects, as long as they're showing efforts towards moving towards those things. Those are things that are also afforded to them. So I would make sure that we understand that, yes, people may have concerns about multifamily right now. There may be a stated concern about this type of urban multifamily under this.
People may have concerns about
multifamily. We've heard concerns tonight. Yes, that there are concerns about that type of a project.
But if they already have a preliminary plan, Charlie, can you, because we have a speaker that has spoken against this that already has submitted a preliminary plan. Will the change in this UDC impact that submittal?
I'm going to say no, but I haven't seen the permit. So long as the plan that's been submitted gives fair notice to the city council of the project that's planned to be developed, those rights would be vested under Chapter 245.
Yeah.
So
So your question is, the answer to your question is no.
Thank you.
Well, and in that scenario, I believe the applicant has a PUD in place. There's underlying.
There's multiple.
There's two different ones.
We have a preliminary plan that's in review.
Oh, okay.
There's two different.
All right.
There's 3 preliminary plans on that north side.
There are actually
45.
3. Okay.
Or 4? Oh, sorry. There's 4 preliminary plans. Chisholm Station. We have 2 of the Timmerman East and West, and we have a Duck Wilkie.
Yeah.
Preliminary. So those are that's that north side. The other thing I just want to make sure that, I mean, since we're just having conversation right now, is also that the north side was part of a TERS, right? And that was something that the council has also looked at. And so if there's questions about infrastructure and there's talks about projects, that's also another tool that the council also has on projects in that quadrant. So.
Can we stop talking about the domain? I am so tired of hearing about. I don't want to hear that I just don't. I don't want to hear that anymore.
Is there a better example of a walkable community?
I don't
near
know.
here
Okay,
with first floor retail?
And I think you've been around as long as I've been here 27 years. People have short memories. Do you remember how people reacted to the domain? They said, "What are you doing? This is insane. Nobody's going to develop out here. No one's going to go build out there. No one's going to go out there. It's a complete unicorn." So this talk about how this is going to be replicated across the area right there, there's a reason why it hasn't. So what we need to look at is actual other options, which I've seen, when you guys go ahead and go to other cities, North Texas and other areas around the country, and you show those examples. Those are the ones that we need to look in realistic conversations about. I mean, do I wish that a domain went up? Absolutely, but I'm also realistic. That was a complete shot in the dark. The people supporting it, I mean, like Stuart said, they almost went bankrupt. And people were calling for their heads, the council's heads, down in Austin about that, and it just turned out okay. That's not the way I want planning. It's a hope and prayer, for that as well. So let's be realistic about what we're talking about, what we're doing for that. This is going to make something that we're going to say that we always want something unique and different around that corridor. This has been councils for over a decade saying, 24, that would be it. Yeah, over a decade saying the same thing over and over again. And we honestly just finally got along to this because of all the other development happening here. You remember the conversations. We were saying, whoa, what is that doing here? We don't like that. What can we do to control the corridor? This is what it is about the road and corridor. At the same time, it also allows, realistic speaking, that when we have developers come who have been great partners with the city and various different things, that we will talk to them about their projects and work with them on things. You saw, that's why I made that point with Michelle regarding that land use, was that whole track, that whole area of Wells Branch and Emmanuel, that has been years working on for that as well. And they ultimately came to a resolution on the issues. So I have no doubt whatsoever that the same thing will happen with all the developers that will happen here with that as well. And especially those who already have their plans in place. So if they already have their plans in place, why are we having this conversation? Because they're already ready to go on that. So we need to make sure, we always have to make sure it makes sense for the developers because they're able to pencil it and make sure it works financially. And it makes sense for the city and our constituents, as that young lady said previously, is about, listen, what are we offering and what's actually going to be lasting? Not something that's just going to go away or we're doing kabuki theater on.
Well, I think Ms. Hausman is an excellent example. And not, as you pointed out, and she acknowledged, not her first rodeo here in town. Many of these other developers and people who've done other projects and are likely to do other projects in the future. The fact that there are 4 or 5 projects that have plans submitted does not affect whether or not this is a wise decision to make for 1,000 acres. These people are going to be coming back, and they'll either be developing here or they'll be developing other places. And if we are unduly restrictive, it's going to affect the pace of development and the quality of development here.
Along that part of the corridor.
I would argue with you slightly because it would, not the quality, but the pace maybe, yes. And I'm on record. I've said it many times. I'm willing to take our time. I'm willing to go slow and get exactly what we need. And I think we get the higher quality. It may take us longer to get it. I'm more interested in the long term.
We cannot.
Can't mortgage our future.
We can't govern over a 3-year period or a 5-year period. It has to be 10, 15, 20, 40. It just does. And I think that's where councils and folks get in trouble for, is that they just don't have that vision on that. They're like, oh, what's going to worry about the next election? No, what's good for the city in the long term on these things. And so I agree that you think that it's going to cause some people consternation. Absolutely. But I also have complete faith that working with staff, they can work to go ahead and bring something that's amendable for everybody involved. It may take longer, but I also think that it'll happen because I've seen it happen over and over and over again. And if we don't like something, guess what? Don't we call you? Don't we let you know what's going on?
Well, you mentioned you've been here 27 years. I haven't been in the area as long as the mayor has been, but I did move to Austin in 1971. So I've been here for more than 50 years.
Then you went to California, so nobody really, that's happening.
And I got to see what California did right and what California did wrong. That's one of the advantages of living in different places. The Fort Worth, Dallas Metroplex, living in Houston, living in Lubbock, living in Los Angeles. I've lived all of those places, but I've always come back to Central Texas. And I've seen it change a lot. And there was a time, and the mayor will remember this, you guys won't because you weren't here yet, when Central Austin had turned into a ghost town.
Not in my era.
In the 70s. You remember Big O, the Oscar Snowden? You remember when that was empty? You remember when the place where Whole Foods is now, there were car
parts.
lots and they were empty, and you can have areas for a long time and long areas.
Yeah.
The development just passes over.
That's right. Well, that takes me back to the 50s because I remember some areas on the north side, kind of northeast side of downtown, because they had just worn the test of time. There was nothing that went there. The rail went out of business, so there was nothing there anymore. Likewise, on the west side of town before Mr. Stewart got there. And so there was a lot of empty buildings, but guess what? What is there today?
My office.
So yeah, I mean, if we have empty buildings around here, they won't stay empty for long.
So, I keep coming back to, we've got a lot of green space in town, and we've got a lot of landowners that have specifically held out and not put in single-family residences in those areas that they could have easily at any point. And so we've seen landowners be prudent in how they allow the land that they have direct control over to be developed. And I think that with these changes that we're looking at to amend the UDC, I think we're just extending that level of prudence and giving council a little more control so that we don't see a multifamily garden style apartment spring up behind a QT when we were expecting, some additional light industrial or something
It
else
was
there.
quite specific, wasn't it?
It's almost like it's a real world example.
That
Crazy,
one,
right?
that may have been I don't know. We'll have to go back and look at that historically. But yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we're saying the same thing, so I don't know if we want to.
So, yeah, I think we've had some discussion on this. The applicants, developers have shared their views, and, I mean, we've had this discussion before. It's not new, unless we're adding something new that we need to talk about. I think we're pretty much done. Is there anybody else in the audience wishing to speak? Okay.
Motion to close public hearing?
I'll second that motion. Motion and second to close the hearing. Motion carried.
I'll move approval of the ordinance under 7B.
I have a motion and second to approve.
And as a reminder, this does require 6 affirmative votes. The system may or may not automatically be able to count those 6 affirmative votes. So
Okay.
we will count after.
We'll announce it.
So you're saying
We'll have Doug
we're
count.
testing this on the front. Make sure Doug
Okay.
brings his.
It looks like we have 6 affirmative votes. Motion carried. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, audience. Thank you, Jeremy.
There'll be a second reading in 2 weeks.
April 9th.
We have another reading. Welcome you to come back, please. All right. Going on to the regular agenda, presentation on approving a resolution accepting the fiscal year 2023 audit. Tracy.
Can we take a short recess? Or?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Sorry, we're going to take
It was an 8-minute recess.
an 8-minute. Did you say 8-minute recess?
6.
I think there's an over-under going on. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem missing?
It's all right. That's
Okay,
we got.
and Mr. Rogers missing? That's
we
all
got-
right.
We got five. We got five on.
We can go ahead with the audit, or, yeah. Tracy, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Yes, I have Michelle Majalski here with Batilla Brown and Hill to present our annual comprehensive financial report for the period ending September 30th of 2023. I know that was quite a while back, but we've actually been working on this for many months now, so we're very relieved and excited to be able to present this report for your acceptance.
That was 45 seconds. You got 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
I will keep this short and sweet. Awesome. So thank you for that introduction, Tracy. Like we said, my name is Michelle Majeski. I'm a CPA with Patilla Brown and Hill, and I'm here tonight to present the results of our audit and to touch on a few financial highlights. So I think Tracy had distributed a copy of the report, and I'm going to go ahead and get started on page 1. Natural place to start.
Oh, actually, in the book?
Yes, sorry. We are
Okay.
going through the book.
There's how many pages? I'm
Yeah,
kidding,
I'm
Lori.
sorry. There's a little bit of an introductory section.
Go ahead.
And that is part of the requirements for the GFOA certificate program.
We
But
don't want to violate anything.
okay, so on page 1, we have our independent auditors report. Here, we kind of outline some of our responsibilities as the auditors, management's responsibilities, and also we disclose our opinion. So to reiterate, these are management's financial statements. They take ownership of them, and we are just engaged to render an opinion of whether we believe that they're free of material misstatement and present fairly. And with that, we were able to issue a clean opinion. We issued an unmodified opinion in accordance with government auditing standards and generally accepted auditing standards, meaning we didn't find anything materially incorrect in the financial statements that would affect your decision making as users of the financial statements or that of any other financial statement users. On the second page of the independent auditor's report, we also reference a separate communication that we share with you, which is the separate letter that you may have received that Tracy would have distributed. I'm not going to go into too much detail because this is pretty standard verbiage that we're required to disclose since we're using taxpayer money. But one thing that we do include in this is any risks that we identify as we are designing our audit plan, just without knowing anything about the client or the entity. What are some risks that we consider in developing our audit? And so I wanted to just touch on those real quick. The 3 risks that we identified were management override of controls. So that's an inherent risk that is present at any entity in existence. So you can have perfectly structured controls and procedures, but there's always the inherent risk that someone can override them. So we consider that when we're planning our audit work. We also have split funded debt. So there are debt issuances that are split between governmental activities and business type activities. So the debt is being paid back from different funding sources. And then also the last one is accounting for IT subscriptions. There was a new accounting standard that was implemented this year as it relates to reporting long-term IT arrangements, software subscriptions. So all of those things we considered as we were designing our audit plan, and none of those items affected our ability to issue a clean opinion. So, moving right along in the report, let's talk about some numbers now. Okay, so if we turn to page 14, here looking at the city on a government-wide perspective, you have about $388.4 million in net position.
Of that, about 96.7 million of that is unrestricted. So you have, on a government-wide full accrual basis, about $96.7 million available to be spent on general government-wide expenses. A lot of your equity obviously is tied up in capital assets, infrastructure, and then the related debt. Moving right along to page 17. So here we're looking at some of your governmental funds, including general fund. Now that's the most important one. You have a healthy fund balance. As you can see, you have about 24.5 million in general fund balance. About a little over 4 million of it is assigned for next year's budget. Looks like you are planning on spending down some of that fund balance that you've built up. But the rest of it, the 20.4 million of unassigned fund balance, that equates to about like 4 months worth of operating expenditures. So pretty healthy fund balance in the general fund. And if you turn the page to page 19, kind of looking at the income statement, what were some of the major transactions that happened this past year? The biggest number on the page that probably sticks out to you is the bonds that were issued this past fiscal year for infrastructure projects. But you can also see some of the effects of the implementation of that accounting standard related to CBITAs in this statement.
Can you give me a quick, I'm
Sure,
looking back
sorry.
on page 17, and
Yeah.
can you give me a quick definition of what is unavailable revenue? That seems like an oxymoron.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So
I'm an engineer.
this is going to get a little technical and a little nerdy, but with governmental funds, we have to record the activity under the modified accrual basis of accounting. So kind of like cash basis. And in governmental funds, we consider the measurement. In revenue recognition, we recognize revenue when it's both measurable and available to be spent. And the standard indicates that available to be spent is considered 60 days after fiscal year end. So if you have revenues, like if you have property tax revenues that you have receivable at the end of the year, in full accrual accounting, you would recognize all of that as revenue. In modified accrual, you haven't received all of that within 60 days. So the portion that you receive within 60 days, you would still recognize as revenue in the fiscal year, but then the rest of that we're going to defer, and it would be considered deferred inflow of resources. So all these balances are amounts that once the payments and the cash is received by the government, that's when those balances will be recognized as revenues.
So does that flow into the next fiscal year then?
Yes. So the related revenues would be recognized in the subsequent fiscal year.
Okay.
So the expense may have incurred in one year, but the reimbursement for those expenses may occur in the subsequent fiscal year. And normally we would accrue that, and we do make those adjustments on the government-wide financial statements and the statement of net position. Those statements are recorded in full accrual accounting, but for these governmental funds, we have to record them in modified accrual. So it's just a little bit.
And the reason why this is important to me is because when we're looking at the budget, we budget based on the total amount that we're going to predict that we're going to collect. But we have to realize that when we're looking at end of year numbers, that those may be off a little bit because not all the money was collected in the
Correct.
year that we were budgeting it for.
Correct.
Okay. And so if there's a fund balance at the end of the year where we're trying to make up some of that lost revenue, it's just uncollected, or as we talk about it here, unavailable revenue.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
It's just a timing thing.
Yep. Got it. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Great question. No one's ever asked me that before, but
And he's just an engineer.
okay. So
do math.
glad I could answer that question and go on my little spiel about modified accrual. I know it was fascinating. Moving right along, I figured you'd probably want to talk about the general fund budget on pages 21 and 22. Budget is looking great also. You came in over almost 2.5 million in over budget in revenues. Most of that was attributed to interest income. I don't know if any of y'all have been keeping up, but past year has been a little bit crazy with interest rates. So we've across the board, and interest income has been skyrocketing. So expenditures, you came in under budget by 1.7 million in total for all budgeted expenditures. So you'd originally planned to spend down some of that fund balance. It looks like you had budgeted for a decrease. And general fund balance decreased by about 5.2 million. A lot of it was related to, as you can see, $10.5 million transfer to the capital projects fund for infrastructure projects. So, one thing I wanted to point out, if we turn to page 24 and 25, we in prior reports, the utility fund was presented as just one single fund, and this year we disaggregated them, and now we're presenting the activity in the water wastewater fund separately from solid waste.
Why'd you make that decision?
That was a staff decision, just for transparency purposes.
Correct.
It just makes it is just a little bit easier to kind of track the activity and the funds.
Or, I mean, I think oftentimes we get questions from citizens regarding why is water cost so much? Why are we doing all these things? And so this allows to show just how much, moving and transferring water and infrastructure that's applicable to water and wastewater truly is for our citizens. And
absolutely. And if you look at page 25 at the net position in both of those funds, you can see a noticeable difference. Solid waste is clearly the activity that's being recorded in this fund is strictly charges for services type of activity, solid waste user fees. But water wastewater, you have of your $208.7 million of net position in water wastewater, 182 million of that is tied up in capital assets. So the water wastewater fund is really where all of the debt and related capital assets are recorded. So
I apologize. I think I missed something here.
Okay.
On page 22, there's an $8 million variance in the transfers out above what was projected. Can you tell me what that is?
I think it was for additional funding for capital project expenditures.
So this is
This
is capital projects $8 million above and beyond what we had budgeted.
Yes, and I think
And which capital projects were those?
I don't know the specifics about which specific project it was, but I can follow up with Tracy and get back to you.
$8.6 million is a pretty big variance. I'd like to know what that is. Thank you.
Okay, so moving right along. The rest of the financial statements are really just note disclosures, expanding upon some of the numbers that are presented. And we also have some statistical schedules that are included as part of our submission to GFOA for the certificate program. And scrolling towards the very, very back on page 93, towards starting from page 93 on, this is what we consider the compliance section. So here we have our letter or a report that discusses the results of our internal control testing. So as part of our audit work, as we're testing numbers, we do some limited testing related to compliance with laws and regulations, accounting standards, and we look at controls and how they relate to making sure the financials are materially correct. And in this letter that we have on page 90, starting on page 93, this is where we would disclose if there were any instances of internal control weaknesses or any non-compliance with laws and regulations. And as you can read on, we did not find any issues in internal controls, but our testing is limited. And you can read more details about the scope of our testing there. But we didn't find any internal control weaknesses. On the next page, on page 95, this is where we have similar letter, but as it relates to major federal programs. So once an entity spends over $750,000 of state or federal grant money, they're subject to a separate compliance audit over those grant programs. The city has a few grant programs. If you look at the CFA on page 97, there are about 4 or 5 grant programs. The one that we tested was ARPA, a big one last few years. But in our testing of compliance with ARPA requirements and control requirements related to ARPA, we didn't find any issues of internal control weaknesses or any non-compliance with laws and regulations. So everything looked good to us. Any questions? Any other questions?
Yeah, on page 26, there's a $1.46 million loss on sale of capital assets. Do you know what those capital assets are?
I think that was the disposal of the treatment plant. Yes. From my understanding, the treatment plant. That's what it was.
Yeah, there was a demolition of an old plant that we had
Demolition of the
purchased a
old
long
water
time
treatment
ago,
plant?
and so we had
Yes.
to take it off the
Okay.
books. Yep.
I apologize. I wanted to make sure. I was like, this was the water treatment plant, right? Yes. Yeah, that was one of the biggest things I think that we had to work through on the audit this year was just how to account for that transaction. There was a lot of costs related to demolishing the building that was on the land, but there are no new assets built there just yet.
Okay, I don't understand how that's a sale of a capital asset.
It's just an accounting treatment. It's just a
But
technical term.
it's not really a sale of a capital asset.
It's a loss on the sale.
It's a loss.
It's a loss on sale of capital assets. That's the line there. But it's not a loss on sale of capital assets. It's a destruction of capital assets.
Okay.
Is that right?
But
Or
what
am I
she's saying, but what she's-
misunderstanding what's going on
But
there?
she's saying by their definitions, their nomenclature, that's why she
Yeah.
says it that way.
But the nomenclature doesn't reflect
It's a loss on the
reality.
disposal of the asset. The asset
The
was disposed.
disposal, not sale. Okay, all right.
Right.
Oh, we may have sold it for scrap, I guess.
Did we sell it for scrap?
We might have paid
No.
it.
Is that,
No, I think
No.
from my understanding and from the review of the underlying documentation and work papers, there was a water treatment plant on the land. It was
Wastewater. I believe it was a
wastewater. Sorry,
treatment
wastewater.
plant.
There we go.
I believe we've got a
Wastewater
photo of it
treatment
right
plant
Right.
that was demolished, and the city still has the land with the intention of expanding and building the future water treatment plant. We don't know. Just yet.
why is that not an operating expense instead of a non-operating expense?
It's just it's an accounting
It's an asset
Classification.
adjustment, right?
But
It's no longer an
You're taking a
asset.
thing and you're destroying it. Isn't that an operating expense rather than a non-operating? I'm just
But-
trying to understand why it's categorized the way it is.
because it's a capital transaction. So capital related transactions aren't considered operating revenues in a business type fund because that's not what the purpose of the fund is.
Okay.
I mean, come on, you know there's legal terms that sometimes you look at, you're like, wait.
All right.
that doesn't make
Anything
sense.
else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm looking at one right now, see the quiet title.
I need a motion to approve the resolution.
Oh, so moved.
Second.
Motion a second to approve 8A.
Yeah, I know, it's like, what? What is quiet title? What is that?
A motion carried. Our next item is discuss and consider action to approve a PCDC professional service agreement with DCS in the amount not to exceed $369,000 for engineering and final design services for Phase 4 of the Impactway Extension to and through the PCDC 17.8 acre tract, and authorizing the president to execute the same.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Amy Mattis, an Executive Director of the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation. This evening, we're here bringing an item from the board voted on February 28th in a 7-0 vote for a professional services agreement to do Phase 4 now of Impact Way into the 17-acre tract that was purchased by the PCDC last year. This item is budgeted, and this evening I have DCS here to provide a presentation and update on where we are with our preliminary plan as well.
Hey, man, you
Darren?
said that was a 7-0 vote on PCDC?
Yes, sir. It was, and we actually had 7 people that night.
Okay.
Not even ask about that. Come on.
Council, Darren Strzelecki, principal at DCS. They've got a small PowerPoint tonight, I think.
What do you consider small?
3 slides.
23 pages.
It's a
so I
brief.
don't know if
It's 100
I'm
pages.
controlling it. Okay.
Other way.
All right. So as Amy had mentioned, the 17 acres there is in the foreground, and the existing Impact Way there at the end is the recent construction we completed. This is the 140 acre south that we'll be extending through. There's 3 tracks presently there. The PCDC 18 acres. The middle magenta is about 44 acres with Skinnell Placemaker, and then the east group is the yellow track to the south. And the alignment of the Impact Way through the tracks has been coordinated with city staff over the last 1.5 to 2 years. The 18 acres will be about 1,500 feet of roadway with utilities and dry and wet utilities through there. And there'll be 2 tracks subdivided into a 2-acre tract and an approximately 10-acre tract. And this is a closer view of those tracks. The project cost is about $6.7 million, construction only, including contingency.
Go back to that, please, Darren.
Sure.
So, I asked this question in our previous meeting. I'll ask it again, just so we can hear it articulated here. The reason for the squiggle coming into the property there.
Yes, so we've actually looked at that. So Councilmember McDonald had asked the little curve there at the very beginning if we could take that out, and so we are going to be able to do that.
Okay.
We do have a meeting with city staff this week on the speed limit, and so whichever decision is made on the speed limit, either 35 or 30 miles per hour, we'll be able to take that out. And since we are platting this property, we're going to roll the replatting of a little bit of right of way because we have to cut the corner a little bit. So it's going to be an incremental cost. It's not a big cost to just roll that in there.
So we'll be able to smooth that out then.
That's right. So the little sliver there, I'm not sure I can point with this or not. The little sliver Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a
Right
little
up there.
mouse down there.
There we
somewhere.
go. We
So
got
this,
it. We got it for
this
you.
will,
You guys
this will
got
be
it.
straight.
Oh wait, they can't see.
That's
it.
freaky.
They can't see what we're talking about. We just
It's rigged.
Right over here.
Whoa.
That's funny.
Oh,
Darren,
you see
can
that
you-
reflect? Almost took his head off.
Yeah, I was watching yours up there.
You
So,
almost took
Darren,
out
can
one
you
of the
tell me
stars.
what
There
is
goes
the
Alaska.
design? What's the design speed limit for this street?
What's shown right here is 30 miles per hour. The existing impact way is 35. And so since we're coming into the curve and basically making a 90-degree angle, we wanted to slow down a little bit. And then we're going to make that second right-hand turn there. So, but like I said, we're going to coordinate with staff.
Okay, was the squiggle, or whatever the technical term is? I think squiggle is the technical term.
It's very tech. I'm an engineer.
Is the squiggle designed to maintain the 35 speed rating, or is the squiggle gonna?
So depending on the speed limit, the radius will increase or decrease, depending on how fast you go. So you have a smooth transition, a driving transition. And so the radius shown right here is a 30 mile per hour radius, which is 300 feet. And so at 35 miles per hour, it'll actually increase because you're going faster. You need a longer radius to have a smooth ride through that turn. But regardless of what is agreed to, that little gap there that was formed by, it's actually an S-curve, so is the technical term. So that will be removed as part of our work.
So
Squiggle
there are-
starts with S, so it's
an
a S curve.
S curve.
Squiggle curve.
It's a squiggle curve. Good to know. Good to know. I know there are other parts in the city where we've had S curves that we are trying in great earnest to rid ourselves of. Why would we design an S curve in this area?
I don't think you even knew that you walked into this conversation.
They're removing it.
He's an engineer. He's good.
I know you guys, so I'm ready for you. So, so the reason this and Councilmember McDonald had asked this during the presentation of PCDC board is the bisecting the property here where it's a kind of a funny shape. For development, you really don't like triangles. You want rectangles and squares. That's going to maximize your yield for the buildings. And so this is approximately iteration 6 or 7 with the 3 landowners to get the road alignment with a alignment that city staff was agreeable to, and also maximize the yield from the properties, the 3 properties in total. And so there's about 1.4 to 1.6 million square feet between the 3 tracks here. And so the reason for that S-curve right there at the beginning is so that we could bisect all 3 tracks and maximize the yield in square footage across the properties.
But we are expecting a volume of truck traffic on here. I know we've got FedEx to the north. These look like pretty big buildings. There's going to be, I think we even saw potential of a truck port down here already.
Right.
That seems like it's going to be a very dangerous curve for truck traffic.
So what we have planned and baked into our design is on the outside radius is we intend to put a guardrail, and then in the top corner here,
Yeah,
top
see,
right
see if
hand
there's
corner.
a mouse you can use.
Yeah, so in the top right hand corner, there's.
That's better to show the other.
Thank you.
That way we can see it on the screen. Hey, look at that.
Yeah, so the top right hand corner, there's a detention pond right here. So we intend to have a guardrail on the exterior here and on the interior here, so that as traffic makes these turns, if they do have an accident, they're going to hit the guardrail rather than going into the pond or going into the building.
I mean, I'm less worried about the single vehicle and more about vehicles traveling opposite directions and encountering speed that was not anticipated in an S-curve. That's what we're seeing, I think, in other S-curves in the city, particularly up Hottie, Seal area.
But didn't you just say that he's an engineer and like with
He
the design,
is.
you know?
He
so
is,
he's
but-
he's the SME on that. So I think you would take that into consideration. And that Hottie curve, that's a completely
completely
different
animal.
one. 'Cause that is a
Is
that
it?
is
I don't know
blind
what the
spot,
radius
death
is up
traffic,
there.
and make it.
Jump from one side to the other, old Dukes of Hazzard style.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I understand why it's designed that way. I'm concerned about the longevity of it. I think we may be buying ourselves some unanticipated problems.
What do you anticipate there?
Yeah,
It's unanticipated.
Well, it could be anything.
That's true, right? You can't argue with it because it's unanticipated.
Once it's in there, what's going to happen with the truck traffic?
So one of the alternatives, if you're thinking about this orientation as being north, so
I
then
am
on the
definitely-
western border, one of the alternatives was to run the road all the way down that western border and then make your 90-degree curve to come out. Now, the issue with that is I think, as Darren said, is that you're truncating those beautiful rectangles there. By running the alignment where it's at, you're cutting off the little pieces of triangles that exist because of the power line right of way, and so that alignment there detracts from the desirability of the development of the tracks, the most part. It introduces an extra 90-degree curve. You're going to have one regardless. That southernmost curve is going to be there regardless.
Well, it introduces essentially an intersection down there, then, doesn't it?
No.
The 90-degree curve down at the bottom, I imagine it'd be more of an intersection than a curve.
Why do you see that as an intersection?
If it were at the, and far be it for us to draw out designs from council, from the dais, that's
Right.
probably a terrible idea.
You're going to?
All I'm worried about is no, I'm not actually.
Even Mike Heath wouldn't do that.
I just want to make sure that we're not introducing a safety issue at the expense of getting a few more square feet in the building.
I just don't see it. I mean, you made the analogy to Hottie, and Hottie, I mean,
totally different.
Yeah, it's totally different with from what's happening here from that. And I'm trusting the engineers that they designed it. Actually, and I'm glad. I guess you guys talked about it at your meeting because I was like, that's a good explanation of why this turned out the way it did.
It was a question that I had at that meeting, but also the S curve coming into the property in the northwestern corner there didn't make any sense to me, and so I'm glad that you were able to reevaluate that and work through it with staff.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you.
comment.
Thank you.
So just for our council's benefit, so we did have alternate alignments that we visited with city staff about a year and a half ago on. And so just for posterity, some of those included coming straight down the west property, which y'all chatted about, and either making this turn, basically locating this series of turns, either, straddling this property line. There was an iteration straddling this property line, and then there were several iterations that kind of wiggled through the middle of the property. But ultimately it came down to the developability and maximizing the square footage. But safety, and we are following the radiuses that are dictated by city code. So it's not like we're tightening them or making
But it's
them.
a 30-mile-an-hour radius, even though the existing road is 35.
Right. So we're not going
We are
45 or
designing it
50.
for a lower speed than is already established.
Right. And that's why we want to slow
my
it down.
concern is people are going to come in at the already established speed and
Or higher.
Darren, correct me if I'm wrong. This still has to go through staff, get approved of the design, everything else with there. So we're seeing this right now, but this could look like a different alignment whenever you actually ultimately bring it to us, right?
Slightly different. So we're through preliminary plan approved. Well, we're 2 iterations through. So we're pretty baked in on the alignment here. There'll be small adjustments. One thing I will offer that, when we meet with staff is we could always, design the curve for 35 miles per hour, but post it as 30. So if you going into it at 30 miles per hour, it's actually rated for 35. So it'd be a safer turn. So we could use a wider radius, but at a lower speed.
Yeah. How much would that pull that radius and to widen it?
So what we're actually doing is the end of Impact Way right now. Whoops. Wrong one.
Yeah.
So then the Impact Way right now, if we do a 30 mile per hour speed limit, we'll actually just extend off the end of it and make this turn.
Right.
And then we'll trim the corner just a skosh. If we do 35 miles per hour, we'll come back to right about here, and we'll have to peel up the pavement about 50 feet of it and then relay it to take that little sliver out and squish it out there so we follow the property line. So it's really not going to go into the property. We're going to come back because the cost benefit is going to be less expensive to, or it's a higher value to peel up 50 foot of road and relay it. So.
Gotcha. And if we, yeah, okay. We'll cross that bridge when we get
Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
There's no bridges there.
You stop.
So schedule-wise, we're
Did you hear what Victor said?
about 4 months for design. After notice to proceed, will be about that'll be about a month later, so about August 15th, and we're looking for about a year to construct. So we'll, if all goes according to plan, we'll be finished with the project on construction.
Hey, Darren, what is the 6.7 million bias?
That's a 15 foot or 1,500 foot of four lane road, 16-inch water line, a 6x4 box culvert to bypass.
Is that for that, just that little sliver there?
the cyan.
It's for this
That
lot.
part.
Everything that's in blue here
Yeah.
is the 6.7 million.
Ooh.
And so these will be pad ready sites. And part of the coordination is with this property here, because the property does fall off. So right now we do have a retaining wall here to maximize this 2 acres, so we can get what's planned to be a 3-story building on this tract right here.
And what's the length of that?
This is approximately 800 feet, and it starts basically
800
at
feet.
ground, and then it goes to a depth of, or a height of 9 feet, and then it kind of slivers back down to 0 feet. So it's going to look like a wedge. But this property owner here,
How far does it fall off? You said it falls off.
about 9 feet at this corner is your tallest, or your deepest, tallest part. Now, with that said, we are going to be coordinating with this property owner here, so based on the cut fill balance, we may be able to get rid of this portion of the wall, but we're ahead of them. The East Group, which is the furthest tract, is about 3 to 6 months ahead of us. We're kind of in the middle, and then this tract here is probably 3 to 6 months behind us as far as development and going through the approval processes.
Can the city call dibs on a future art installation, painting a mural there?
On the wall, you mean?
I mean, a 9-foot high retaining wall, that makes for a nice mural scape.
Yeah. So the request from the board was to have an attractive feature. So we'll go through that, and it can be limestone or pressed or stamped concrete, but
Was there a
something
press from the
attractive.
board from this guy?
What's that?
I'm thinking we could do Victor's Head 9 feet tall, and that would be perfect.
Mayor, would you entertain a motion?
Yeah, please.
Motion to approve 8B is presented.
Second.
Motion and second to approve.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carried. All right. Our next item is discuss and consider action to approve an agreement between the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation and City of Pflugerville regarding administrative and supportive services.
Mayor, could we take 8C next, if you don't mind? 8C would be the Articles of Incorporation.
Articles of Incorporation.
We skipped
Is
one,
that,
8C.
No, that's, no, I read that.
Oh,
Yeah, I read it correctly.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so which one are we on?
So item
8B is what we just
Item
did,
8C on the final agenda is the Articles of Incorporation item.
I have 8D as Articles of
It's-
Incorporation.
So I believe that your script was from before the items were rearranged.
Okay, so
That is my fault.
just tell me which one we should do. Okay, let's move down to
8C.
8, whatever. Discuss and consider approving a resolution amending the Articles of Incorporation of the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager. So strictly speaking, this doesn't really have anything to do with the service agreement, which was kind of the impetus for this. But we figured while we were at it, while we were looking at the bylaws, the service agreement, it made sense just to go ahead and take a look at the articles. Hadn't been reviewed in a little while, so we sat down with Charlie and kind of took a first stab at looking at the articles, and the lens on this is really what needs to be in the articles. When you think about it, the articles are really just the kind of the skeleton, and then your bylaws really puts the definition on it. And so if it didn't need to be in the bylaws, we're suggesting that you take it out. So you're seeing some deletions there. You're also seeing the addition under one of the sections
James,
of,
just to be clear, you said you sat down with Charlie. Did you sit down with PCDC staff and their attorneys too?
yeah. So we took first blush, and then we sent those changes over to PCDC attorney and to Amy.
I
And
was
they
waiting for you to finish that.
Sure, and they reviewed and concurred as well in their budget meeting. So what you see here represents kind of removing things that don't need to be in there and replacing things with state law language, so this can have some resilience, and that we're not going back and having to change the articles, that you can focus on changing the bylaws, which can be changed by resolution. Of course, this can be too. It just takes an extra step of filing with the state. It's not a huge deal, but
And this got approved 7-0.
so this was approved by the PCDC board as well, and they recommend these changes.
Gone through line by line board.
Yeah.
Section by section.
Do you have a question?
Of course I do. Are you ready for questions?
Yes, sir.
I think it's not so much a question, but more a statement. So I will tell you that under the board of directors, during my tenure over at PCDC, we and before my time here on council, we specifically limited the number of city council members to 1 at the time, and I think we amended that to 2 here after we reached 7 votes on council. Back then, it was only 5 votes, and we thought having 2 was not a good idea. I liked the ability and the message that it sent, saying that we were restricting ourselves above and beyond state law, and that we were seeking input from the community, and we wanted to make sure that it was a community board for the Community Development Corporation. So that's the one change in this amendment that I am opposed to. I don't think we should change that to allow up to 4 council members or staff to be board members, because that's not my intention for the organization.
So I don't disagree with the thought of that. Matter of fact, when we had this discussion previously here on this dais, I think I argued strenuously that we have 2, and then we ended up having 3, which again, the will of this body. I think that given that the way the state law is written that governs Type 4B organizations, that it allows up to 4, I think that all these articles do is bow to that and say that's what can be done, but by no intention does this require that to be done. There may be a time that we can't predict. You were talking earlier about unintended outcomes, right? I would rather that the PCDC have or this council have the ability that we are afforded by state law in times of need, rather than having to jump through hoops to redo. It just seems prudent to have any sort of powers available to us that we don't necessarily have to exercise them.
Indeed, that can make sense. I think it's not necessarily jumping through hoops. It'd be a 2-step process, right? And is that onerous, and does that putting it in the articles then dictate what our intentions are, rather than something that is lost to history in the minds of a prior council? I want to make sure that our intentions are written down as clearly as possible. That was my intention, and that's why I championed the change back in probably 2015 or so. So I want to make sure that we state our intention and we have record of our intention for those who come after us.
So the only thing I'd say to that is that we just had this conversation about the corridor, because we're saying, hey, listen, this is what we're having right here, but it gives us flexibility. It's another tool in the tool belt right there. I mean, I honestly, when we had the discussion about 3, that was apprehensive about that too as well, but ultimately we came to that. It is what it is with that as well. I mean, I think allowing flexibility for future councils to do so, sure, why not? Why not have them have that flexibility? It doesn't mean that they execute on it. And I get the posterity point, but given that Serena says 3 people watch our meetings, I don't know, who's going to remember that from that. But I do.
We're going to remember it if it's in the articles.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's if it's in the articles that specifically denote this is what's in the articles. Doesn't mean that the previous council recommended that. It just means it was in the articles. Like, I don't think that previous council was thinking, man, absolutely we need to go and do this. No, we were thinking at that point, okay, how many people do we actually need on there? I was surprised when Charlie told us that you can have 4 on there because a lot of reasons. I was surprised by that. The same list right there, but given our government, it is what it is. But I just don't want it to be caught as that saying, aha, now we're instructing future councils, you got 4, you got to do 4. Or, hey, we've got 3 now, we're always going to do 3 now too as well. I like it, you said it best, I like the independent aspect to PCDC. I also became acutely aware in the last year why, okay, listen, we're going to go ahead and have folks get some things fixed in the interim and then move forward with it that way. And I think we have the right people on PCDC to get that executed now. So I don't want to get caught up in the fact that, the possibility this is going to dictate what future councils do, as opposed to, hey, this is another tool in the tool belt that if they want to exercise it, they can. It is what it is with that. And, to your point, though, you both are saying the right thing. Like, it would only take 30 days and an amendment either way to go ahead and get it done.
Well, it's just like the SUP. It's an extra hurdle, but it doesn't make it impossible.
Oh, look at you. You were waiting. He was
See, now
waiting.
he's on board.
He was waiting. Waiting to say that.
Can I play it now? Can I play it now?
You're such a lawyer. You're such a lawyer.
I think the term is sauce for the goose. Mr. Mayor, will you accept a motion?
I will.
We do have a public comment request.
Move to close public comment?
No, she's saying we have someone for public comment.
No.
Oh, we have someone for public comment.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
I misunderstood.
Melody.
Turn the volume up.
I've been waiting patiently.
Okay, your turn.
David, that was nasty.
Good evening. So, David, I actually wrote that same thing down in my notes about the special use permit, right? You guys got to be consistent. Melody Ryan. I did serve on PCDC back a few years ago. I'm opposed to the PCDC amendment that would allow up to 4 city council members, which is a quorum of the city council, to serve on the board of the PCDC, regardless of whether it aligns with current state law. The question isn't only what you can do, but what you should do. When I served, there was only 1 city council member, and it worked well. This is a bad financial and governance risk due to a lack of diversity and segregation of duties and a concentration of risk with just a handful of decision makers. Pflugerville has a culture and history of inclusion of the community in boards and commissions. If you do not involve the community, you are increasing your risk of making less comprehensive and effective solutions. City Council currently approves the PCDC budget in all contracts and appoints the board members. If you don't like a deal or a plan, then you just vote it down. It's been this way for 20 plus years. What is the reason that the City Council should be allowed to dominate the PCDC board at every meeting? Is the city really unable to find 5 or 6 capable citizens out of 65,000 population to serve on PCDC? Having the current boundaries that encourage more public participation is protecting the citizens both now and in the future when you aren't on the council anymore. Including unique and diverse perspectives and experiences results in better outcomes. You should strive to recruit multiple community members with specific work experience from different geographic areas of the city to help the city grow and thrive both now and in the future. Volunteers want to have a feeling of belonging and significance and to make a positive impact. When you structure the volunteer opportunities to reduce or eliminate their ability to do so, they won't want to serve, and you are depriving the community of a source of future leaders. As leaders, you need to remember what it's like to be a community member to truly be able to serve well. Just like last time, I wanted to see if ChatGPT might provide me with some additional insights. And the results actually align with my comments. Lack of diversity of perspectives, decreased community support, loss of trust, ineffective solutions, missed opportunities for innovation, increased social tensions. These are all results of decreasing community involvement. Instead, I challenge you to embrace inclusion and diversity on PCDC.
just like the UDC amendment. Think of it as keeping it more restrictive, and then you use a special permit if you want more than 1 or 2 people. Like you said, it's just one extra step, but you keep those guardrails. I urge you to vote no. Thank you for your consideration.
To your comment, Melody, I would disagree with you on finding, you may be seated. It's not going to be a discussion between you and me, but just my comment is that I think membership on the Pflugerville Development Corporation is at its most critical time than it's ever been before. In the past, I have seen very capable and notable people who have made contributions to the PCDC. I've also seen people who have shown up to say, this is my first time to do anything, I just moved to Pflugerville. No, that's not the person you want on PCDC. You need somebody who's invested in this community, who has a heart and soul for where this community is and where it is going. So while I don't necessarily disagree with Mr. Weiss on 4 people on the PCDC, you're right. But I think we do need to find, are we capable of finding 5 good people, 3 good people in this city? Sometimes I do wonder that, especially for economic development, because in the past, I'm sure we've just had some rubber stamp members that didn't know what the heck they were doing, and I've seen that. I have seen that myself. And we don't need that. We need positive direction, positive leadership, not just on the board, but also from staff to get us where we need to be over the next 20 to 30 years. And if we're not doing that, yes, this council has final oversight and overview of what happens in PCDC. And I would encourage you, council, for you to take a closer look at what's going on there. Examine everything as it's brought to you, even though you have 3 council members on there. We have certain input, but we don't have a majority vote. And it's not a matter of a majority vote, it's a matter of the input that we have because of the knowledge we have, hopefully grooming those members that are already there who have just come on board. Fortunately, recently we've added 2 board members who I have full confidence, extreme confidence in their role on PCDC, and they're in the audience today. And so those are the folks that are going to make a difference in this community. So, yes, I would like to find qualified people to be part of PCDC. Also planning and zoning, another critical area. So while I feel that 4 members would be out of order, certainly. I think that the members that are on there now are not necessarily there to misdirect, redirect, but certainly engage in the conversations that will help that organization move forward and also help the new oncoming members develop in areas. I've sat there many times. Board members don't ask any questions. They don't make any comments. It's like, why are you here? We don't need board members like that. So that's my editorial. Thank you.
Mayor, I would underscore everything you said and add to it. I disagree with ChatGPT's assessment that were we to add 4 council members to the board, that would somehow magically reduce or diminish the diversity of that board. I think the diversity that's evident in this council would be reflective of the diversity that was on that board, were we to add 4 members. Not that I'm advocating for that. Again, I'm simply saying that this is what's allowed, and as we have seen, right? As we have seen, applicants come in, and we've been short, right? We just recently we did not have enough applicants, or enough what we felt were to be qualified applicants, and rather than being forced into appointing someone that we might not think meets the qualifications necessary to lead such an important board, this gives us the ability to fill that gap with a council member that may be in a temporary position, right? And until more applicants can be found. I just think this is a prudent step to providing for efficacy, maybe is the word I'm looking for, of that board.
I think we've had long discussions about PCDC over the last year. And I think that we all agree that the city's at an inflection point, and this is one of the inflection points that we're at regarding what our future is, where we're going, how we're going to do that, and what drives that vision and how we work together on that vision. And I think that right now, like you said it before, is that with PCDC, it's about just doing setting the steps, setting a standard, and then letting it go and fly. I mean, that's what it is right there. We saw the need to have that happen. We've had those inflection points before in the city, and this is one of them. And so what is the future of the city? How are we going to do economic development? How do we actually bring in what we need and the necessity, the tool sets made available for people to prosper in the city, not in the next 3 to 5 years, but 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and how are we setting it up from there as well? I think it's been a great discussion. It's been a robust discussion. We haven't necessarily always agreed on everything with it, but we all agree that, PCDC is a fundamental aspect to what is going to happen with the city moving forward, and people like Amy, and the folks over there, they're leading that charge in there. So how do we make sure that their success is a future that's not hindered by policies or issues that come from there as well? I understand your concern. I don't want to be trite or anything else about that. I'm not going to let him just slam dunk you on that comment, because I think it's a fair comment. I really do think it's fair on what you're saying with that. I'm just looking more about, okay, what other tools, if there's anything that we keep talking about, is like, what tools do we have available to try to make sure that we get the best and the most out of PCDC? And I think that I'm just looking at it this way as one of them. Doesn't mean it's going to be executed on, but it means that, okay, let's make sure it prospers when it does.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve 7B with the substitution of the word 3 for 4 for the number of
Okay, so you're
Council Messenger.
members of the city government on the PCDC
I'll
board.
second that motion. Any discussion, council?
No.
Okay.
I'm just asking for clarification, so you're saying you're okay to 4?
No, he's saying he wants
Three
instead of 4.
So the way
It's written in the inverse.
is it allows, it's written in reverse.
At least 4.
It's
shall
written
not
to
be.
only allow 3
3 of the directors
non-council
must
or
not
non-staff.
Yeah.
And so he's saying, and so that by saying 3, it allows for 4 council members, or a mix of council members and city staff. So by increasing that to 4, he's saying that would restrict us to 3 council members
or staff.
and or city staff.
That's correct.
I'll second that.
That's my motion.
You already
I second
Mayor
it.
already seconded it.
Okay.
It's funny. I always tell people all the time that we have all these discussions and we're all fine in the end.
That's why
They
we
don't
have the
believe us.
discussion.
I know. They don't believe. I'm like, no, we get along really well.
Okay. Motion approved.
You were saying?
Yeah. I mean, but we're just gonna move on and be like, all right, what's the next item?
All right.
Tomorrow's another day.
Moving back to item 8, whatever,
8D.
regarding the administrative and support services.
Okay. All right. So item 8D. All right. So this was initially brought before you on the 13th. We were directed to go back and visit with PCDC staff. We did that.
It's very magnanimous of y'all to do
We revisited the agreement in house. Got together with their attorney and with Amy, and then ultimately took it to the board. They made a couple small changes, and then approved unanimously the agreement. The 2 small things are just clarifying that we would provide support for our financial software if they had issues with using Munis, our ERP system, that we would do that. So they just wanted that in writing, that was clear. So we added that, no problem. The other item. So we also, they also struck one of the whereases in the beginning, which we were fine with. And then we also added in under section 1, C, that just clarifying that we would make those payments and execute the payment documents at the direction of the executive director. So just again providing some additional clarity. And with what you see in front of you was unanimously approved by the PCDC board and recommended to this council to approve. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are all of the questions about supervision and payments of all of the FTEs fully and finally detailed here, or are there still some details that need to be worked out?
That's a budget question, not a agreement, not in this financial agreement. But to your point, I would expect that we pass this with the understanding that FTE would transfer over to the city.
Okay, but that hasn't.
But that'll come up in a budget discussion.
Okay, so that's part of the agreement that hasn't been
That
fully
leaves us
fleshed
out of this
out yet,
agreement.
is that right?
Yes, sir.
So he gave his expectation,
So
that's
could-
not part of this
No, it's
specific
not.
agreement.
Can
It's
we-
not part of this specific agreement.
Can we wait 2 weeks till that's fully fleshed out and then approve the agreement?
It's
Is that is that a problem?
They're not mutually exclusive. You could do this and then we could iron that out later. The board plans to discuss that in further detail at their next meeting. But regardless, their board agrees with us handling the financial services side of it.
So I get your concern, I do, and I think that I don't want to necessarily take away an FTE from PCD if we don't need to. However, that's not the discussion tonight, and it's not an understanding that this is dependent on that. So I say, yeah, pass this and then have the discussion whenever y'all have your discussion.
Correct.
Please.
Yeah, and
I think it's a good idea to state that intention. I think it is appropriate to state that intention to provide the clarity and the assurance that, yes, they will have less financial work, we will have more financial work, they have a financial employee, we should probably do the right thing and migrate that person over to our own books.
So shouldn't we just take one bite at the apple instead of two?
So you're saying wait.
But that's
Just wait until after the next meeting when they approve everything.
But that's a budget amendment, not
No, they-
financial services agreement.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
not
just
part
want to
of the
make sure we
agreement.
state the intention,
Well,
I don't
that's-
think we need
aren't
to
Aren't
wait.
they tied in together?
No, sir.
No.
No, they're not, because
They're
from what I understand is that the services being rendered by them may not necessarily just encapsulate what's specifically denoted in here. So it's more robust than that.
I mean, when the city took over the payroll and services and whatnot, there any sort of impact on budget staff was discussed independently of that service agreement.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Mayor, would you entertain a motion?
I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it.
I move to approve, I believe this is 8D.
I second.
Motion and second to approve.
Okay, motion carry.
What else we got?
Okay,
Bylaws.
so the next item, 8, E, discuss and consider approving a resolution amending the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation bylaws.
Okay, thank you. So, kind of same story. We did the initial review and then sent it over to PCDC to review it. The changes that you see in the bylaws align with the changes reflected in the services agreement. Things that are no longer necessary need to be amended. And then while we're in there, we did some other kind of general cleanup. Again, the PCDC board made a couple small tweaks, but nothing substantive, and recommended approval of this body unanimously.
You're saying that my comment to make sure that we renumbered after deleted sections was de minimis?
No. That was not a clear
I just like hearing. I like hearing Jim use these terms.
Thanks.
That's what I love.
Not substantive. Sorry.
Leave that to your interpretation.
It's late.
sir.
I apologize, sir.
All right,
Motion to approve 8E as presented.
Have a motion and second to approve.
He didn't even let the words come out of my mouth. He was like,
It's just
"We're
like,
done
move
with
along,
you people."
move along.
Well, technically, that's the next part. That's how it is. That's how it works.
Oh, my.
Motion carried.
All right.
Okay, we wrap back around to the items that were pulled. Trista, if you would read those, please.
Yes, we are starting with item 5D, approving a general services agreement with Studio 1619 for $80,000 for landscape architecture services and authorizing the city manager to execute the same.
What do we
Is
got?
there a specific
David?
question?
So on 5D, it looks like the PSA is incomplete. There's a bunch of blanks and X's rather than having a fully completed PSA. So I'd like to have 5D represented next time with the PSA completed.
He said that it's
I can't.
I'm sorry. When I looked at the PSA today, it was incomplete and had a bunch of X's and blanks, as if somebody hadn't gotten around to finalizing the PSA. So I'd like to have 5D represented the next meeting with the PSA completed.
What is he talking
I mean, this is the.
So,
about? I don't know what he's talking about.
I mean, what I'm seeing in here
Do we?
is executed, but there's definitely an exhibit attached that
It has
some
a bunch
highlights.
of,
That has a bunch of blanks.
yeah.
Yes,
So-
yeah, the attachment, the exhibit, and the attachments
the
are.
day-
We'll be happy to bring it back.
So can we? And this brings to a general discussion. This is the second time this has happened.
I'm aware.
So can we just make sure?
Yes, we
moving
can.
forward.
Okay, we'll bring 5D back. All right,
Sounds good. No,
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 take no action.
no action.
take no action.
right.
Literally.
Item 5I is approving a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for and to accept, if awarded, a Project Safe Neighborhood Grant Award in the amount of $70,000 from the Office of the Governor for the purchase of services and equipment.
So my question is, why that exact amount?
Why the, okay.
Why are
Tyler
you asking
Summers?
for a grant for 70,000 instead of 65 or 75 or
So
82.3?
Go ahead.
70,000 is the cost of the lease of the cameras, the 28 cameras we have.
Okay, so that's,
It's the,
it,
what
it's
we,
It's a nice round
specifically
number.
for that purpose.
it's what we
Great.
asked for.
Does that include tax?
No tax.
No, no.
We're,
exempt.
I don't think we pay tax on that.
Perfect
pay
answer.
tax.
Move to approve 5I.
Second.
Motion and second.
I mean, it's really not a bad question. Yeah,
A little extra for shipping.
that's true. We do. Don't we just order on
5J,
Amazon?
same
Okay,
question.
motion carried.
Do I have to tip the delivery?
Item 5J is approving a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for and to accept, if awarded, a Criminal Justice Program Grant Award in the amount of $72,287.50 from the Office of the Governor for the funding of personnel and purchase of services and equipment for violent crimes enforcement.
So why $72,287.50?
We guessed. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
You know that has to be specific, so he's got to know that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So that was,
The citizens have a right to know. If I ask the question, the citizens don't find out.
that's funding for 2 softwares for Intel lead policing, some training, and some equipment,
What equipment?
surveillance equipment.
Okay. All right. That's a perfect
Second.
answer.
Motion and second to approve.
You're seconding my motion before I even make it. All right. Thank you, sir.
Did we get a motion?
Move to approve, seconded by Rudy.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion carried.
Item 5K, approving a resolution with the caption reading a resolution of the City of Pflugerville, Texas, approving a right-of-way license agreement with IDIL Springbrook Commerce Center LP, a Delaware limited partnership pursuant to the Pflugerville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 96, Right-of-Way Management, Division 5, road licenses at 18100 Schultz Lane.
All right, I pulled this one. The reason I pulled it, and I did have a number of conversations back and forth with staff, I think several by email and even one in person. So, thank you, Caesar. I had some conversation. I still needed to pull it. Thank you very much. And no, so my main concern with this is that this is, as I understand it, the developer is going to install a lift station that forces wastewater into a force main and goes under A.W. Grimes to connect into Southwest Water's service area. There's a gravity line to the north, there's a gravity line to the south, both of which are in our service area, but would require the developer to do some additional expense in the upsizing of that system. I think it's not a great idea to build a lift station, even if it's a private lift station, to implement another force main. And I've heard other concerns about the provider in that area. I think this is an opportunity for us to take some service area. So I'm not excited about this, and I wouldn't want to approve it on those on that basis.
So let's hear. We know that no one's a fan of Southwest, you know, given what's happened in that area of town and how we still don't have service.
Well, and I think a force main and a lift station are
so
not infrastructure that we
you're
necessarily
the expert. You made. He said that there's various different options. You picked this option, so please expand on it.
And I'm going to call forth to help me answer this question, Brandon. Brandon Pritchett with the Utilities Department.
Okay.
I'm Gordon Haas, and I'm with the Planning and Development Services, and we've been working with this developer, IDI Logistics, on how they would achieve or get wastewater service. They are in the designated service area of what used to be Southwest or Windermere, or I think they're now going by Texas Utilities. So they're
It's still the same people own it.
It's
that was
still
an
the same
electric
people.
company.
Yeah.
What's that?
I
I'm
thought
sorry.
Texas Utilities was an electric company back.
Yeah, but they
TU.
but they can denote
But
themselves.
that was like
'cause
in the 80s.
But it's a separate.
Whereas TXU.
It's a separate.
Yeah, they keep changing
stream
their
of
name.
business,
I don't
yeah.
know why they keep
Of course.
changing their name.
That's weird, huh? Interesting.
For the purposes of tonight's discussion, I'll just keep referring to them as Texas Utilities. But this particular site is in their designated service area as designated by the Texas Public Utilities Commission.
PUC.
Yes, correct, PUC. And so they must receive service from Windermere unless they're able to switch from Texas Utilities CCN area to our area, which would require the approval of both the city and Texas Utilities, and there would likely be a financial transaction and quite a bit of paperwork through the PUC.
Now,
Okay.
the area to the north of this is also in the Texas Utilities
Yes, it is.
area, but they currently contract with us because we have a gravity line that they can feed into. Is that area going to then feed into the same force main? Is that area, because obviously we already have some sort of agreement where a customer in the Texas Utilities CCN is feeding into our system.
There was an agreement worked out with the subdivision to the north where we agreed to be the wholesale wastewater service provider with Texas.
What's that subdivision? I'm sorry.
I don't know the name.
Is it AFP or is it a?
No, AFP is the people to the south. That's
AFP
the
is to the
industrial
south,
complex. I've forgotten the name of the subdivision just to the north of this site.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, isn't that Windermere?
I don't think it's Windermere because it's north of there. I'm
Is
almost
it-
thinking, where do you live, David?
Is it Springbrook Glen?
No, I was thinking it's Windermere.
No.
Well, okay. I'm sorry. Keep going. The subdivision.
Not Park Place?
So there was an agreement made
Westport?
years ago, a three-way party agreement between the developer of that subdivision and Texas Utilities and the city of Pflugerville, that site did not change service areas from Texas Utilities to us. They remained in Texas Utilities, but an agreement was done where we agreed to accept the wastewater from their subdivision. And so the lines within that subdivision are Windermere lines, but they discharge to the city, and we then convey it down to our wastewater treatment plant and treat it. That was a pretty onerous agreement to work out years ago, and the option exists we would have to do a new agreement with this person, again, a three-way party
Use the term
agreement.
onerous. Expand, please.
Well, we do these things because they're hard, right? Is that what you guys said earlier?
That's right.
Jack. Look at this. Keep going. Keep going.
Since I wasn't around at the time when that was, I've been told it was a pretty
Okay,
onerous.
so you were told it was onerous.
Yes.
But you're.
I don't have personal knowledge.
Okay, so.
But we could copy and paste.
Objection,
the current
hearsay.
agreement. Right. At Pflugerville Heights, by the way.
Oh,
Pflugerville
thank you.
Heights.
Thank you.
So you were told it was an onerous process, and you're told consequently to that, this would be something that'd be more expeditious while making sure it services the applicable people. We're trying to get the same job done this differently.
So, Councilmember, the option does exist to do a three-way party agreement again and to send the water to the subdivision to the north. There are some other hurdles that have to be considered. The downstream flow conveyance capacity of our existing wastewater system is very limited, and there is a large diameter sewer line that is now at its maximum capacity, and the city would need to make or have them make some downstream improvements to the infrastructure to be able to even accept their flow.
So okay, so in this instance, would we have to make the physical changes necessary to do that, to execute what you're proposing if we were
That's
to go that
correct.
way, as opposed to what's being proposed right now?
That's correct.
They would have to pay for some infrastructure improvements. Right now, they're going to have to pay for a lift station and a force main across the street into an
And the line in question that needs to be upsized is about 20 feet off the back property line of some residential properties, and any construction in that area is anticipated to be very disruptive to the residents.
So essentially, what you're telling me, if I don't want to put words in your mouth, is that we're doing it this way because it's the most cost-effective, it's the least invasive, while also doing business with a company that continues to change its name because it's not the most popular one.
and puts a force main under one of our roads.
I won't say yes or no to
Fair
that.
characterization and move on.
So the nearest Texas Utilities gravity lines that exist, other than the subdivision to the north, is over on the other side of A.W. Grimes. That's the only other place they have any lines existing. So to avoid getting it into our system where we have to do so many downstream upgrades, we get it into their system where they can handle it. And that does necessitate them crossing A.W. Grimes right away, but we're taking necessary precautions like requiring this license agreement that makes them responsible for the operation and maintenance of this line, and gives us other assurances, and also dictates that when they cross under A.W. Grimes, they do it in a casing pipe. In other words, they push a pipe, jack and bore a pipe under the roadway that is larger than the carrier pipe, and then they install the sewer pipe in it so that we're not open cutting A.W. Grimes and disrupting the traffic in the city.
Yeah, because we've seen what's happened with that.
So I'm sorry, my machine was yelling at me. What's the disruption going to look like when they're actually putting the pipe in under A.W. Grimes? Are we going to lose traffic capacity there for a day, a week, a month?
Because they're putting in a casing pipe, there will be a hole dug on either side of the roadway and the casing pipe pushed under, and then the pipe slid in. So A.W. Grimes traffic can continue as normal.
No disruption at all?
There will be disruptions on the street they're trying to get to is Pecos River Trail and Quitman, and that will be open cut at that area. But Pecos River Road is divided by a raised median, and we believe there's enough room on the north side to move the traffic to the north side while we work on the south side. So there will be, to those local streets, there will be disruption, but we intend to keep traffic open.
And on the west side of
On the west side of A.W. Grimes.
So on the assurance of maintenance and upkeep, how solid is that?
It comes with the regular clauses of penalties and recourses that we can take if they don't do that, including we can require them to remove it from our right of way at their cost.
So you're saying it's as solid as possible, but a company still changes its name 3 times in a 10-year period.
Well, this line will be owned by IDI Logistics, not by Texas Utilities.
Okay.
So the lift station is privately owned by IDI Logistics, the developer, and he also owns, maintains, and operates the force main. It doesn't become Texas Utilities until it empties into their gravity manhole.
Gotcha. So it'll be a privately owned, pressurized
In our right of way.
Sludge going under our road.
And what area will that force main serve?
it only serves that one development IDI because the subdivision to the north already has, as I mentioned, that wholesale agreement and it has service. And the areas east of there are already in our service area and have service. And the property to the south is in our service area and has service.
So it's serving only Pflugerville Heights.
Only IDI Logistics. The spring, we also
Only
refer,
that one building?
only that one property.
Only that property.
And if I'm not mistaken, the area to the north, Pflugerville Heights, the agreement for us to take their wastewater flows expires in January.
January of 2025.
And are we aware if Texas Utilities, DBA, whatever, has a plan to take that into their own system? Because I imagine it takes a little while to install pipes like these things.
Brandon, if you, I'm not aware.
And I guess my question would be, is there a more appropriate crossing that would take both IDI and Pflugerville Heights rather than just IDI? It seems like IDI is trying to solve IDI's problem, and we can solve their problem by approving this, but there are other bigger problems in the area that we're about to encounter.
So to answer your question, Councilmember Weiss, the agreement to the north for the Pflugerville Heights neighborhood expires January 2025. We've reached out to Southwest Water or Texas Water Utilities about when that expires. They know when it expires, and also they have another agreement that expires this year as well. So we're working with them on a multitude of different agreements that all are set to expire this next year. And we don't
are, but that doesn't mean they are. Right?
that's correct. But the onus is on Texas Water Utilities to be able to serve that.
We got a little valve we close in January and then everything backs up, or it keeps flowing, right?
It becomes a legal remedy at that point when they haven't fulfilled their side of the agreement.
A legal remedy, not
All
a
right,
self-help remedy.
Let me ask a question. I just asked you. I'm going to ask that same question. So how can I put it? If we deny this, what happens? I mean, what are our options? And what's the point of working with a company that I already have 2 council members saying that they're not worth working with?
So he already gave the options.
Only 2?
I've only heard 2 speak up. You just editorialize.
Well, one option is that they transfer to our service area, but again, that requires agreement from Windermere, Texas, if they will agree to it. The city's agreement, processing through the PUC, and probably a financial arrangement.
And how long do they have to do that? I mean, you have until January of 2025. So
that's
a whole separate thing. Okay.
I'm speaking of just IDI.
But you have a good question though. To the point, what's the timeline on that?
Yeah.
Excuse me, on transferring?
Yeah, what would be a timeline on that process?
I think I've seen them happen from 6 months to a year in that transfer.
So that would give them plenty of time to build their own, you were saying?
So I'm just want to make sure try to understand the landscape here because there's several conversations going on. But we've got option A that's presented to us that basically says the property developer is going to take on the cost of directing their sanitary sewer just outflow and directing that into the existing CCN without any sort of extra cost to the city. Option B, that's not fully articulated, but it's like anti-option A. Option B would be that one, we make a financial agreement where we have to pay into Texas Water Utilities to take their water flow out of their area to service that, and then figure out some sort of billing arrangement so that we could bill IDI to treat that based on flows. That then we got to do extra measurement because you can't. Most of it's measured by a percentage of water that you take in. So not that it's hard and difficult, but I'm saying that now there's cost to it. Free versus now it's going to be a cost, and I'm not against the cost, but I don't see the benefit of incurring that cost.
Do we have an estimate of the cost?
It doesn't matter in this instance.
Yeah, it does.
In this instance,
$5,
first I have to understand what the benefit is to incurring the cost. And I don't see that.
Well, so
And then we can quantify it.
In my mind, the benefit is we don't have a pressurized pipe running through our right of way and a privately owned pipe, a privately owned lift station that's forcing into that force main. I think that's something that this council has been very active at doing, is taking lift stations offline and transitioning to gravity where possible, because it is safer, more efficient, and more reliable. So yeah, we'd be requiring a private company to own and maintain their own lift station, and yeah, that doesn't cost us anything, but is it the right answer for service for our citizens?
Well, but to be fair, to his point, we are working on another lift station somewhere where it doesn't make sense for us to build another wastewater treatment.
Gravity is available
Yeah,
here.
you know what I mean? No, but I'm saying
It's
to his
just, it may
point,
be
that's
more
what I'm saying.
expensive, it
Yeah.
may not be, I don't know. It may take longer, it may not.
So this
Gravity
is
available.
serving our citizens, is that correct?
It's serving a development that is within city limits. IDI
The city
logistics will be located within city limits, just not
Which
within our.
indirectly does go ahead and serve our citizens because of it's like a corporation, their tax liability, all that stuff.
Jobs,
Yeah.
right?
So that's what he's that's why he's asking that question.
Yeah.
And we do have other examples of private lift stations that exist throughout the city. I don't know that we have.
Are they owned by Southwest Water?
No.
If I may, we don't even know if they would be willing to sell. So let me start with that. I could ask us to delay it 2 weeks, and we could ask that question, because I can't even start to give you numbers until I even ask if it's for sale.
Right.
Or you move along with this. But if you really want the B, then I wouldn't even be able to.
So let me ask you this, Serena: is there something that needs to be is there some sort of reason that needs to be done tonight?
I mean, you've got a developer waiting.
Hold on.
I mean,
What were you going to say?
There's nothing magical about tonight.
Okay.
I do think there's one other consideration that maybe hasn't been brought up, the need for those downstream improvements, which we can cost quantify, but I think they're gonna be
we've
in
got to
the-
do flow projections. We have to, there is more to this
No,
than
and
just.
that's perfectly okay.
Right.
So then I say that I'm so sorry.
So, but the accuracy of those
It's gonna take me a
cost
lot longer to do
estimates,
that.
now you're gonna need an engineering study, because otherwise it's just back of the napkin math, right?
Ask. Is it going to be back in the napkin math, or are we going to?
No, we've had our wastewater modeling consultant, there's been other developments proposed in this area, and we've already looked at the capacities of the line. And part of the reason why we know we're kind of right at the cusp of exceeding the capacity of that line is we looked at that when we reviewed the Longhorn development. And they were able to kind of squeeze in, but the pipe can only
So
hold
you
so
can
much
get you
flow.
can get us an estimate that's reflective of the expertise of the industry, as opposed to something
Yes,
that
yes,
you're
sir.
just trying to sandbag and say, dude, it's going to cost you $10 bajillion, so you should just go with option A.
So we have a representative in the audience who's wishing to speak on this item.
Yes.
Come forward.
Is he from Southwest Water?
No, I'm with IDI Logistics. My name's Addison Brown. So I can answer a lot of these questions that have come up. We do have a third-party engineering report that did a downstream assessment on the gravity line from the Pflugerville Heights subdivision down to the lift station that the city maintains. I think the estimate was 1.6 or 1.8 million dollars in downstream upgrades that we would be responsible for. Our flow would be 4%
When was
of
the
that.
estimate made?
That was, I want to say September 2022.
Wait.
No, it's more.
Oh.
So, by the way, the background on this, we've been trying to solve this issue for 2 years, and we would love to go to y'all a downstream gravity, but Windermere is obligated to serve us because we're in their sewer district. We're not in your sewer district. And it's actually been the hardest. We didn't want to go that way, right? We had to secure private easements. We have to pay for the lift station. That's like $600,000-$700,000 of our cost. As discussed, it is going to be a case pipe. We're going to maintain it. We're on the hook for maintaining it in
And do you
perpetuity.
maintain those kind of pipes anywhere else around the state?
No, typically we make sure we have sewer before we buy the property.
So who's the expert that's going to be? Are you outsourcing that, or is that an internal?
Oh no, yeah, we'll have a maintenance contract with a plumbing company to maintain the equipment.
And you've done that before somewhere?
Yes, and our property management company is JLL. I mean, they're
Oh, okay.
they know what
Yeah,
they're
no,
doing.
you're-
But I'd love to answer any questions. Like I said, I had the answer on that, so I was fidgeting over there. But we really have run through all the traps. Gordon and I have been dealing with this for 2 years, and we do not. This is not the ideal solution, but it is a solution and allows us to move forward with our development. And I appreciate your consideration on it.
Did I hear right that it's basically twice as much money if you hook into the gravity system as if you?
It's
do the
twice as much
station?
money, and the pipe that we would be hooking into, I think, is 18 feet deep or 20 feet deep, and it's right up against people's houses. And so when you start digging that deep, I mean, you can do trench boxes, but you also have to bench back a little bit. It's going to be very disruptive to them. It'll get into the roadway at their house. This is a 3 or 4 inch pipe that's going under a road inside of a 6 inch pipe. So, I mean, it's pumping every 30 minutes for like a minute. It's very low flow. So I really think it's, like you said, we're not even digging up the road. We're just digging a hole on each side of the road and shooting it under. The total length of our force main is under 300 feet, I believe. So it is the path of least resistance physically at this point, even though it's been
physically and metaphorically.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this has been our biggest headache for 2 years. So we've put a lot of diligence into figuring out this solution. I really think it is the best solution.
So I think I've got a question for Charlie then. My understanding, if property owner needs sewer service and the CCN provider cannot provide that service, then
You're not
aren't they required to release the CCN?
Their obligation to provide service is simply having the capacity to provide the service, just like us. If we have to have the capacity,
they
but
have
we
to
can
be able to get
require.
there.
Well, we can require developers to put the mains and lines in to get to us.
Right, but if he's not allowed to cross the road to put the line in,
He
then,
wants to get us.
then
I
they
understand
can't
that.
provide the service.
Well, that's certainly an argument they can make to require them to release it. It's going to be fact-based, and I don't, just this conversation, I can't tell you whether or not that would be a sufficient argument or not.
How good of your attorneys?
I've sat in federal court over this exact same case, and we lost even when they said they could not serve. I'm saying there's plenty of court cases out there that say that's not a good enough argument.
Yeah, and that was probably a court case over federal debt,
federal.
right? Over federal debt and what.
But they may
to
have
be able
federal
to serve,
debt at
what
some
be able to
point.
serve means, and there's a lot of federal cases out there. And our firm was involved in a case with the city of Cibolo and the city of Schertz with a rural provider that had federal debt, and it was very expensive. And the courts, now it's different because it's federal debt, right? And the federal government wants to protect its debt, but the language in the statute is ability to serve, and all the cases say if you've got capacity, that's sufficient.
But you have to be able to reach the capacity.
Not under the law.
Not under the law.
Under the law. Under the law, so long, if I'm just talking about us, under the law, so long as we have capacity, and we do have main and line extension policies, right? Where we require developers to extend mains and lines to reach our wherever it is where we're at. And that's sufficient.
But it's not our CCN.
But if they don't have the rights to cross the property to reach that,
I have not ever encountered a situation where the argument was we can't get to you because of easement issues. I don't know how a court would interpret that. I don't know. I've never dealt with it before.
I'd say that I think the errors, particularly when you're talking about water or wastewater, the error on that. No, you have capacity. Consequently, you're responsible to serve.
I think so too.
I'll let you know that in a couple of days when we're in front of TCQ.
Okay. And could I say one more thing?
Sure.
No.
So we are the last property that could potentially feed into this overloaded sewer line. Right now, everyone else is already hooked up to it and it's working. So you add us to the mix, like I said, it's going to require downstream upgrades. Right now it's working. If it's not broke, don't fix it,
all right. I think I've got another question for Brandon.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
you,
who
sir.
had 9:45. Brandon,
You had 9:45. I had 8:20.
the Pflugerville Heights neighborhood, if we're no longer servicing that neighborhood for Southwest Water, do we then have capacity for IDIL?
It would depend on, there's some math that needs to be worked out, that would
They
be,
would provide as much flow as,
yeah,
as
I
one neighborhood?
I'd have
As a
to
whole
look at the
neighborhood?
difference between, I know roughly the LUE count for Pflugerville Heights. I would have to do the math, or we would have to do the math on where that would be. I couldn't tell you off the cuff.
I was
if
gonna say,
we-
if you knew that
capacity
off the
would be-
top of your head. That's
No, I couldn't. I don't. But I mean, we could run that math. But it also, then there's a,
There's a contractual issue there as well.
yes, sir.
So, do you still want to wait for more information?
I-
or did you get what you needed? I know, sir. I know. I'm asking.
I know, I feel like there's a better option out there. I feel like we need to be working with the other partners that service our community. I think there are many moving parts in this that having an individual pay for their own force main crossing a road is, I know you said it wasn't an ideal solution. Obviously, it's the most expedient right now, but I'd rather do right than expedient. So I'd like to postpone.
I don't know if it's the most expedient, given that I just heard that they've been considering options for 2 years. This isn't expedient, sir. This is
Oh,
where they've gone.
It's the fastest.
So what do y'all feel? Do y'all want to wait 2 weeks? Or you don't want to? Okay.
Doug, are you making,
you're welcome to make a motion
to delay
and whatever.
for 2
All right.
weeks? Is
That's
that
where
what
I'm
you're
at.
making?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We'll see where it goes.
I know. I tried getting you, Doug.
I thought you said you were going to call the question. Where is
Oh, I
Where'd
did.
this bravado come
Wait,
from?
you're right.
Editorialize.
I had to talk about.
I mean, this is when you should call the question because
Motion
obviously
carried.
we didn't need to argue about it for that long.
You know what? The Mavericks are playing right now, and I gotta be paying attention to what's going on over there.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Nobody cares about the Spurs.
Did he bang the gavel?
Yeah,
Thank
heard
you very
me.
much for
You heard
coming
me,
out,
Spurs
gentlemen.
fans. All right.
Oh, yeah. We haven't even adjourned yet. Here we
Are
go.
we done?
Is that what these things are?